Chapter 860. In the end, Poplar Fruit didn't go out. Fong Beibei, who was worried and scared, threw the Batman outfit out in the middle of the night. Poplar Fruit followed behind with a wry smile, protecting his girlfriend. That night, Poplar Fruit didn't do anything else. He slept with Fong Beibei the whole night. She was especially afraid that Poplar Fruit would sneak out at night, so Poplar Fruit wanted to work in the living room, but she insisted on lying on the sofa and sleeping in Poplar Fruit's arms. Poplar Fruit could only obediently put away his computer. Gan Juanji didn't know that he had just walked through the gates of hell. That night, he called 2 nightclub beauties back to his high-end hotel-style apartment for a threesome. If Poplar Fruit had arrived on time, he could have created the illusion that he had died of exhaustion on top of a woman. It was only because Fong Beibei was kind-hearted that Poplar Fruit decided to let him go. However, if he touched Fong Beibei or Kiki again, Poplar Fruit wouldn't let him off. The next day, Poplar Fruit woke up Fong Beibei and Kiki, and the whole family drove to exercise. Although it was called exercise, it was actually more like they were going to support Song Jiwen and Chen Anlan. Today was the first time they were going to compete with the plaza dancers. However, when they got there, Poplar Fruit felt that the 3 of them weren't enough. The cultural plaza was very big. Hundreds and thousands of old ladies and grandpas gathered together to dance and play with swords. They were having a lot of fun. After finding Song Jiwen, Poplar Fruit once again felt that his family's visit was really unnecessary. What the fuck? Song Jiwen had somehow managed to gather a group of over 20 middle-aged women from out of nowhere. They were dressed very conspicuously. Poplar Fruit could see that many of the old men's eyes were restless. Fuck, mosquito, where did you get them? Poplar Fruit grabbed Song Jiwen and whispered. Not bad. This momentum, this outfit, you must have spent a lot of money, right? I didn't spend any money, just a little for gas. Song Jiwen said proudly. I asked my mom to bring her plaza dance team over. They are all aunties who watched me grow up. That's enough, right? Later, I have to drive them back. The car, a brand new school bus with a yellow logo. Song Jiwen had discussed it with Chen Anlan. Although buying a car cost a few $100,000, since the dojo was going to the middle to high-class students' business, they had to improve on the service, to give the parents reassurance that they would send their children home safely. Now that the car was bought, the driver wasn't there yet. Therefore, Song Jiwen acted as the driver on the weekends to pick up the aunties. If Song Jiwen hadn't said anything, Poplar Fruit wouldn't have noticed that Liu Suqin had also come over. She was holding Chen Anlan's hand and asking questions, making the little girl's ears turn red. Oh no. My godmother is here too. Poplar Fruit pulled Song Jiwen and blocked Fong Beibei's figure. He muttered to Fong Beibei, then he glared at Song Jiwen and said, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" "Sigh, sister-in-law, it's okay." Song Jiwen laughed and said, "Look, isn't little Chili fine too?" He had forgotten that he was so excited after successfully pulling his mother's team over that he didn't even tell Chen Anlan. Now, Chen Anlan was feeling very awkward and helpless. How can this be compared? Poplar Fruit retorted, "She's not in a relationship with you. She'll be fine later. But the baby isn't ready to see my family yet. If godmother sees it, she'll send the photo to my mother's phone." Fong Beibei hugged Poplar Fruit's hand and was a little nervous. Poplar Fruit could feel that Fong Beibei's palm was sweating. "Then what should we do?" Song Jiwen scratched his head and said, "Why don't I cover for you and you guys retreat first?" Often, conflicts came from within the people. Before Song Jiwen's voice died away, Kiki jumped out from Poplar Fruit's side happily as if she had discovered a new continent. She screamed, "Grandma, Grandma, Kiki and Sister Beibei are here to see you." When the little girl saw Grandma Liu, she immediately remembered what she had asked her before. Before he could dodge, Poplar Fruit saw his godmother, Liu Suqin, let go of Chen Anlan and walked towards them with a smile. Fong Beibei shyly and nervously hid behind Poplar Fruit like an ostrich, hiding her head behind Poplar Fruit's back. It felt like she was deceiving herself. Needless to say, Fong Beibei was pulled aside by Liu Suqin and whispered to her. Poplar Fruit couldn't save his girlfriend from her hands. Looking at Fong Beibei's sad eyes, he couldn't help her even if he wanted to. On the other side, Chen Anlan secretly gave Song Jiwen a flying kick to stabilize his mood. He organized the group of aunties to start exercising. Of course, Song Jiwen played an important role in organizing them. Tai Chi dance, let's call it Poplar Fruit's health Tai Chi dance that he figured out by combining Tai Chi with square dancing. Poplar Fruit had already taught it to Chen Anlan. This dance was very simple. For Chen Anlan, it didn't even take half an hour to learn it. Therefore, now it was Chen Anlan who was leading more than 20 aunties to exercise. Unlike the quiet old man who usually practiced Taiji fist, Song Jiwen chuckled and turned on the loudspeaker next to him. The rock and roll tune of the hottest ethnic trend immediately attracted the attention of the people around him. Aunties, before we learn the movements one by one, please watch me demonstrate it once. Chen Anlan bowed with a smile on his face and began to gesture. The movements were really simple. There were only a few steps that everyone was familiar with and were relatively easy to learn. Poplar Fruit only organized them organically and used the agility of Tai Chi to match the melody of the current popular square dance, the hottest ethnic trend. Chen Anlan had done research on integrating Tai Chi into street dancing. Now, she could perform the whole set of Tai Chi dance effortlessly. Moreover, with her graceful posture and beautiful and cute face, the performance of the dance movements was several times better than what Poplar Fruit had taught her before. Not bad, not bad. It's very nice. This is the first time I've seen this type of square dance. It's very fresh. And the movements are very beautiful. If it's a performance on stage, it might even win a prize. The aunties smiled and were not stingy with their applause. Although there were only 20 or so people, the sound was so loud that many of the surrounding dancing aunties could not help but look over. Chen Anlan let out a sigh of relief. She was not tired. She was too nervous. After all, she used to be very resistant to this kind of performance and this kind of tacky square dance. Even if she stood up bravely, she was worried that she would embarrass herself. The auntie's encouragement finally made Chen Anlan feel relieved. Moreover, there was a hint of joy. This was something that she had never experienced in all her years of Tai Chi. Liu Suqin did not know if it was because she was affected by the atmosphere here. She also pulled Fong Beibei, whose face was red, and joined them to learn Tai Chi. Let that guy go just like that. How is that possible? Chapter 861. It turned out that the fun of square dancing was not in dancing, but in being able to gather so many old sisters, singing and dancing, talking and laughing, and enjoying the sunset that belonged to them. When Poplar Fruit joined in, he began to understand the true meaning of this. During the intermission, Poplar Fruit was pulled out by Song Jiwen to perform a 42-way Tai Chi fist. Although he did not show his real skills, he still won the applause of the audience with a few difficult routines. Of course, Poplar Fruit was not the most outstanding. Kiki, who had been happily dancing with the adults, stole the limelight. The little girl learned Tai Chi fist dance for a while, and then ran with her grandmother to the group of square dancing aunties to learn Jiangnan style from others. The little guy shook his little buttocks and imitated the adults' shuddering dance steps. It was so adorable that everyone was mesmerized. She became the favorite of the aunties, and even they could not dance properly. They were amused by Kiki's cuteness and laughed until they bent over. Song Jiwen sighed with emotion and concluded, "Laro Guo, you don't have to come next time. Just send Kiki here. One Kiki is worth thousands of Poplar Fruit." Although it was full of malicious ridicule, Poplar Fruit still smiled and did not feel ashamed. Anyway, he just took it as a compliment to his daughter. "What did Godmother say to you?" On the way back, Poplar Fruit asked Fong Beibei. "Nothing." Fong Beibei blushed and said, "Auntie told me that your mother is very nice and easy to get along with. She told me not to be afraid." Xu Jinfeng probably nagged a lot in Liu Suqin's ear. The two elders were worried about Poplar Fruit's marriage. The older generation could not keep up with the ideas of the modern people, and the concept of marriage in the city was not so traditional. Liu Suqin painstakingly persuaded gently, and was worried that she would scare my daughter. "Well, don't worry. My mother is indeed a good person. She's very easy to get along with." Poplar Fruit smiled. "My family members are very good. They definitely won't bully you." I'm afraid you're the one bullying me. Fong Beibei giggled and said, Auntie already said that if you bully me, just tell her. I have Auntie backing me up. I'm such a good person. Why would I bully you? Poplar Fruit complained. Back home, Fong Beibei had to go to class. Although it was Saturday, she still had a special class to attend today. Moreover, the teacher was quite strict, so attendance was inevitable. I'm going to class. What are you going to do? Fong Beibei was already out the door with her small backpack. She suddenly turned her head and asked while blinking her eyes. Nothing. Poplar Fruit innocently said, I don't have any plans today. I'm just going to stay at home and write my thesis. However, Fong Beibei did not believe him. She suspiciously looked at Poplar Fruit. Her heart was very hesitant. She felt that after she left, he would not do anything bad. Last night, Poplar Fruit woke up in the middle of the night and wore such a scary outfit. This scared Fong Beibei. No. You can't leave my sight today, Fong Beibei firmly said. She closed the door and came back. I'm not going to class. I have to watch you. Poplar Fruit bitterly smiled and said, I already swore to you. I already said that I won't find trouble with him. Why don't you believe me? Don't worry and go to class. I'll be good. But Fong Beibei was unmoved. Then what should I do? You can't always follow me, right? Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said. Fong Beibei hesitated and said, but I'm worried. I have to observe you for 2 days. I can't let you take any risk. All right. Poplar Fruit could only stand up and began to pack his things. Where are you going? Fong Beibei nervously stood up. Poplar Fruit walked in front of her, pressed her forehead and affectionately rubbed her head. He smiled and said, I'm going to send Kiki to my teacher's place. Then I'll accompany you to class. Fong Beibei blushed. She hugged her small backpack and asked in disbelief, really? She knew that Poplar Fruit was not like other boys. He did not know how to do romantic things like giving his girlfriend gifts every few days or taking his girlfriend to a romantic restaurant for dinner. Poplar Fruit only knew how to live a simple life with her. This was quite good. For Fong Beibei, it was enough. But, who wouldn't think that it was too romantic? Poplar Fruit's occasional romance, although accompanying his girlfriend to class was not considered romantic, also gave Fong Beibei a big surprise. Walking on campus, Fong Beibei held Poplar Fruit's hand. She always felt that she was walking on clouds and mist. She was so happy that her whole body was about to float. Today's elective class was called Functional Analysis. It sounded like a very advanced class. The professors who came to class were all balding. This showed how much effort this class took. During the roll call, Poplar Fruit shrunk his head and pretended to flip through the textbook to avoid the professor's inspection. Fong Beibei was indeed Fong Beibei. Once the class started, she immediately entered her top student mode. Not only did she not whisper to Poplar Fruit, but she also listened attentively and raised her hand from time to answer the teacher's questions. Poplar Fruit did not understand a single word. Looking at the formulas written by the teacher on the blackboard, Poplar Fruit felt dizzy. He could not understand a single one. He began to doubt himself. Is the mathematics that I studied for more than 10 years the same subject as this? Poplar Fruit was bored to death. He took Fong Beibei's textbook and casually flipped through it. He could not understand, so he flipped through it page by page to pass the time. He could not understand. Perhaps Fong Beibei also felt the same when she listened to his French class. No wonder she did not go again after the first time. Poplar Fruit was lucky to pass the first class safely. During the class break, Fong Beibei comforted Poplar Fruit's lonely heart under the curious gazes of everyone. There were many students from different classes. However, during the second class, just as Poplar Fruit was trying to keep a low profile, the professor suddenly called him, Fong Beibei, the student on your right is a little quiet in class today. Then I'll leave it to you to answer this question. Poplar Fruit was confused. Fong Beibei was also stunned. She did not know that it was because she was too active that Poplar Fruit was exposed to the teacher. Poplar Fruit swallowed and stood up nervously. Although he could not understand, it did not hinder Poplar Fruit's memory, so he knew what the teacher was asking. prove that all the b points of a measurable bounded function on xx coordinates are a dense subset of xxxxx. XX was a string of symbols that Poplar Fruit could not understand. Poplar Fruit made up his mind and read, if the closure of A is equal to X, then A is dense in X, or A is dense in X. A is dense in X. What did this mean? Poplar Fruit did not know either. He just read out the places in the textbook where he had seen a dense subset. Fong Beibei opened her mouth and smiled bitterly as she took back the small piece of paper in her hand. Okay. This student is very serious about the preparation before class. The professor waved his hand and gestured for Poplar Fruit to sit down. He smiled and said, however, it seems like you can't keep up with the class. You have to learn from the girl on your left and do more proof questions to integrate the content you learned in class. After fooling around, the professor let the sweaty Poplar Fruit go. Poplar Fruit sat down and looked at Fong Beibei with fear lingering in his heart. However, he saw that Fong Beibei was trying to hold back her laughter. This girl. Poplar Fruit thought gloomily, no, I can't come here again. Mathematics is fiercer than a tiger. Chapter 862. Although it was already late autumn, Yangcheng City was still hot during the day, but it was still better at night. Hearing from big sister Beibei that Kiki would appear on TV today, Kiki made a fuss early in the morning for her father to bathe her. She then dragged her chair over to the TV with Gold Z, waiting for her father to turn on the TV. It's not that early. Poplar Fruit muttered to Fong Beibei in the kitchen, it starts at 8. Tell her that she probably won't want to sleep until after 8 o'clock. It's fine. Fong Beibei smiled, don't be so inflexible. It's rare for Kiki to appear on TV, so let her sleep later. It's fine. Poplar Fruit helplessly nodded his head as he thought in his heart, you'll find out in a bit. When it was almost 8, Kiki was already impatient. She took out her toy drum and started to make a ruckus in the living room. Goldsy loved to join in the fun as he jumped around Kiki while barking at the drum. Poplar Fruit was helpless as he could only confiscate Kiki's drum and turn on the TV to calm her down. Fong Beibei came out of the kitchen at this moment. She had been busy for a long time and made a large fruit platter. There were dragon fruit, apples, oranges, iced watermelons, etc. It was colorful and beautiful. Time to eat fruit. Eat fruit while watching TV, Fong Beibei giggled. With a woman in the house, life would be more colorful. Poplar Fruit might know how to make a fruit platter, and it was even better than Fong Beibei's, but if it was him, he would definitely not think of this. For a rough man like him, watching TV was watching TV, and eating fruit was eating fruit. Seeing such a large fruit platter, Kiki immediately jumped up from her chair and excitedly waved her hands. Kiki wants to eat, Kiki wants to eat too. Fong Beibei used a wet towel to wipe Kiki's hands before using a toothpick to pick up a piece of apple for Kiki. Kiki grabbed it and happily chewed on it. Do you want it? Fong Beibei asked Gold Z. Poplar Fruit was still prepared to answer. Depressed, Yang Guo could only rely on herself. She picked up a piece of cut orange and tore open the skin to eat. As she ate, she said, how can a dog eat fruit? Indeed, Goldie came over, glanced at him, then turned around and left. It's almost time. Fong Beibei poked Poplar Fruit and signaled him to press the mango table. Sure enough, the opening song of the movie had already started playing. Kiki was very familiar with this song. As she chewed on the apple, she hummed along to the beat and even twisted her little butt on the chair. Poplar Fruit felt that his daughter was sitting too close to the TV, so he held Kiki down with one hand and pulled her chair back with the other, causing Kiki to snort twice to express her dissatisfaction. Why are there commercials? Fong Beibei leaned against Poplar Fruit's shoulder and the two sat very close. I haven't watched TV in a long time. There are more and more commercials on TV. Uncle, what are you doing? Fong Beibei lowered her head and saw Poplar Fruit holding his phone. His fingers were constantly typing. Post on Weibo. I took a photo of Kiki watching TV and put it up. Poplar Fruit smiled without raising his head. He tilted his phone slightly towards Fong Beibei and said, didn't teacher he want me to post on Weibo before? Post a few more so that the ratings will be higher. As they chatted, The commercials finally ended. After the opening dance, the hosts went on stage. Listening to them teasing each other, Fong Beibei couldn't stop smiling. Her body was soft. If it weren't for Poplar Fruit, she would have collapsed on the sofa laughing. "Daddy, Daddy is out," Kiki suddenly shouted. She pointed backstage, where Poplar Fruit had just walked out. She peeked her little head out and shouted excitedly, "Kiki, Kiki." Where? Fang Beibei looked around, but she didn't see anything. After being messed up like this, Yangguo's cool opening seemed a little dull. Poplar Fruit saw it. He didn't expect Kiki to be so naughty as to peek out secretly. Moreover, the camera was sharp enough to capture Kiki. Poplar Fruit pointed backstage and said, "She just flashed by. It's okay. It's Kiki's turn to go on stage later." "Ying." Kiki cried out shyly. She covered her eyes, feeling like she was deceiving herself. She even turned around and wanted to cover her father's mouth because her father was laughing at her for not daring to move on her first appearance. It's okay. Kiki's next performance will be very good." Poplar Fruit smiled as he carried Kiki up and gestured to Fong Beibei to give her a piece of watermelon. Next, Kiki performed another catwalk under the encouragement of Teacher He and her father. This time, with the help of the special effects artist, Kiki waved her little magic wand and created a string of dreamy little stars. "Wow! Kiki is so amazing." Fong Beibei sat up and clapped with a smile. However, Chichi was a little confused. She remembered that although she was indeed holding a magic wand at that time, she didn't make such a beautiful effect. "Where's Kiki's magic wand?" Kiki jumped down from her father's lap and tugged at her father to find the magic wand and give it to Kiki. After half a month, the magic wand had lost its novelty, so Poplar Fruit kept it in Kiki's toy box. To Kiki's great disappointment, no matter how she waved the magic wand, it didn't look as good as it did on TV. Chichi pouted her little mouth and played with the little magic wand. She was completely puzzled. The shows on TV didn't attract Kiki because Teacher He and the other hosts were all asking Poplar Fruit personal questions. They were all prepared a long time ago. Poplar Fruit explained to Fong Beibei, "Didn't I tell you that Teacher He and the others came to see me the night before the recording? He gave me a list and told me to tick off the questions that were suitable for the show's Q&A and those that weren't." With that said, Poplar Fruit was about to tell Fong Beibei what other questions would be asked on the show. Fong Beibei quickly covered Poplar Fruit's mouth and said reproachfully, "No spoilers. You've already said it, so what else is there to see?" Next, it was Song Qian's turn. Fong Beibei was supposed to be happy because she was a fan of Song Qian, but when she saw that Song Qian was so tall and dressed so sexily, there was only a tube top under her suit, she turned to look at Song Qian. She turned her head and looked at Yang Guo with a strange gaze. "What's wrong?" Poplar Fruit asked, amused. Fong Beibei reached out and pinched Poplar Fruit's soft waist. She blinked her big eyes and bit her lower lip as she said, "Isn't Song Qian very pretty?" "Not as pretty as you," Poplar Fruit said firmly. "But she's very tall." "Not as pretty as you." "She has a great figure." "Not as pretty as you." "She's also so famous." "She's an idol singer." "Not as pretty as you." No matter what Fong Beibei said, Poplar Fruit didn't relax until Fong Beibei was happy and didn't ask anymore. Fong Beibei's tendency to get a little jealous is probably a bit disliked by everyone, but the flaws can't obscure the beauty, right? Besides, Poplar Fruit just likes to love her and spoil her. Even if this is a problem, Poplar Fruit can't change it. Chapter 863. After the first two segments of the show, Kiki's eyelids were already drooping as she leaned back in her father's arms and dozed off. Fong Beibei wondered why Poplar Fruit didn't carry Kiki back to sleep. She reached out her hands to carry Kiki, but the moment she picked her up, the little girl woke up. After waking up, the little girl didn't seem to be affected at all. She stared at the TV with her big eyes as though nothing had happened. Not only that, but she was also giggling as she watched the TV. Her smile was bright, as though she was just pretending to doze off. "Aren't you sleepy?" Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit doubtfully. She moved Kiki from Poplar Fruit's arms to her own and didn't do anything else. "Keep watching." Poplar Fruit mouthed silently. Kiki was beaming as she watched the TV. 1 second, 2 seconds, her smile gradually faded, and her little mouth was slightly open. 3 seconds, 4 seconds, the little girl's eyelids drooped, her head fell back, and she started snoring again. The way she dozed off always made people feel that she was cute. Asleep. Fong Beibei didn't believe it. She waited patiently for 2 minutes. Anyway, it just happened to be the commercial break. When all the signs of Kiki showed that she was indeed asleep, Fong Beibei tried to carry Kiki again. However, the moment she moved, Kiki woke up. Everything happened again. Fong Beibei thought that Kiki was unconscious. She steeled her heart and carried Kiki in the direction of the room. But just as she walked away from the TV, Kiki moved her limbs and struggled as though she was about to cry. She shouted, sob, no, Kiki wants to watch TV. Fong Beibei believed her now. When Kiki opened her eyes, she was indeed awake. What to do? Fong Beibei watched her sit back on the sofa, and Kiki began to doze off again. She was not the same as before when she cried and wanted to watch TV. Fong Beibei frowned and looked at Poplar Fruit, only to see Poplar Fruit looking at her with a grin. You want to see me make a fool of myself? Fong Beibei angrily punched Poplar Fruit and glared at him, waiting for him to come up with a solution. No way. Poplar Fruit leaned over and whispered in his girlfriend's ear, if she wants to watch TV, she always looks like this. Didn't I just tell you? You shouldn't have told her. Although it was fun, Poplar Fruit still took pity on his girlfriend. He hugged Kiki in his arms and continued to mutter, don't worry about her. Wait until she's dozed off for an hour. Then I'll carry her back. Fong Beibei nodded. She used a toothpick to pick up a piece of apple and put it into Poplar Fruit's mouth. Since Poplar Fruit couldn't move, she would feed him. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei with a smile. The two leaned back on the sofa and continued to watch TV. After the commercial, the fast game entered the second game segment. Speaking of which, watching herself on TV was a very strange feeling. Originally, during the recording, there wasn't such a strong difference. However, through the editing crew's skillful hands, the personalities of the two guests were reflected very prominently. For example, Song Qian's positivity and unwillingness to admit defeat, as well as Poplar Fruit's considerate care and cooperation with the program. Even Poplar Fruit didn't feel that warm. Every small detail, such as supporting teacher He and sister Na, was recorded in close-up. Not only that, but the program group also added subtitles, so that the audience's impression of Poplar Fruit as a warm man was even deeper. However, in the following balance yoga ball competition, Poplar Fruit's other characteristics would be revealed. I know this game. Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit whispered. Although they spoke in a low voice, it didn't affect Kiki. The sound came from the TV. Poplar Fruit smirked and said, do you want me to tell you whether Song Qian's group won or my group won? No. Fong Beibei gave him a dirty look and said, I hate spoilers. On the TV, teacher He asked Song Qian and Poplar Fruit if they wanted to change their group members. Song Qian gave the choice to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled and shook his head, saying, no, I think sister Na and brother Haitao are very good. You really don't want to? Wei Jiao smiled, our group is very strong. Yang Guo pretended to hesitate, but in the end, she firmly nodded and said, no need. I believe that Black Hole was so strong just now. Sister Na and brother Haitao will definitely perform well in this game. Afterwards, Sister Na and Fatty Haitao had a touched expression. How about I join Poplar Fruit's group? Wu Xin raised her hand and volunteered, this way, the strength will be more balanced. I will help Kiki's father win this round. Sister Xin, in fact, there is no difference with or without you. Fatty Haitao laughed and stabbed a knife. There is no difference with you. The audience below is shouting that Haitao is the weakest. Wu Xin immediately argued with him. But Haitao is big. Song Qian covered her mouth and laughed. She felt injustice for Haitao. That's because he is fat. The audience below the stage knew the truth. However, in the end, it was decided that Wu Xin would join Poplar Fruit's group, forming a 4-against-3 situation. Perhaps because Poplar Fruit's group almost lost, Everyone felt sympathy for the handsome poplar fruit. The neutral audience below the stage began to cheer for Poplar Fruit's group. Of course, Song Qian's voice was louder. Who told her to be an idol singer? Chatting for too long, Fong Beibei muttered, "Start the game early. I want to see Uncle win, hee hee." Poplar Fruit laughed and did not say anything. They quickly entered the game. The first round was Song Qian versus Fatty Haitao. The yoga ball was really soft and bouncy. When Poplar Fruit helped Fatty Haitao up, the yoga ball had a lot of deformation, but it still supported Fatty Haitao's huge body. Fatty Haitao swayed on it, feeling like he was sitting on a spring bed. "Haitao, are you going to lose if you let go?" Vega laughed while holding the microphone. "But Song Qian is wearing a pair of high heels," Sister Na said, cheering for Fatty Haitao, "so we still have hope." "Ready to start." Song Qian raised 2 index fingers and asked Fatty Haitao hesitantly, "How do I push?" Teacher He, who was the host, laughed, "Push anywhere. Because he is at a disadvantage, there are many places he can't push." The audience below the stage roared with laughter. Poplar Fruit saw Fatty Haitao's face change. He probably guessed that if he pushed Song Qian somewhere, her fans would probably eat him up. Fong Beibei covered her mouth and laughed. "Haitao can't do it, he can't do it." It was obvious that Song Qian was standing still, while Haitao's arms were swaying. His whole body was swaying up and down on the yoga ball. It was obvious who was better and who was worse. Fatty Haitao still had the heart to fight. He lowered his head and bent down, trying to find a place that Song Qian could push, such as the waist. However, this also exposed his head to the opponent. Song Qian just gently pushed Fatty Haitao's head, and Fatty Haitao fell back, lying on the mat with his feet in the air. Fong Beibei was laughing so hard that her whole body went limp. Chapter 864. "Uncle, why don't you go?" Fong Beibei's eyes were full of fighting spirit. She began to shake Poplar Fruit's arm. Fortunately, she didn't wake Kiki up. Poplar Fruit pointed to Wu Xin, who was about to go on stage, and laughed. "It's easier for girls to fight against girls. We have 2 girls in our team. We have to let them deal with the troublesome Song Qian first." However, there were differences between women. Poplar Fruit and Haitao helped Wu Xin step on the yoga ball. Wu Xin's whole body was soft, and she couldn't straighten her back. "Wu Xin, can you use a little more strength in your upper body?" Vega guffawed. He was already sitting on the cushion, laughing so hard. Wu Xin was also embarrassed and laughed. She laughed even more powerlessly. Her whole body was twisted and her weight was pressed on Haitao. Poplar Fruit was already trying very hard to support her. He laughed and said, "Sister Xin, straighten your upper body and use more strength." But Wu Xin couldn't get up. If Song Qian was a cartilaginous animal, then Wu Xin was like a boneless animal. Everyone could see that her whole body was soft. As soon as Poplar Fruit and Haitao let go, she would definitely sit on the ground. Finally, everyone supported Wu Xin to stand, but her legs were shaking. One of her arms was up and the other was down. It was as if she was going to do a ballet dance. After Haitao let go, he laughed and lied on the ground. Sister Xin has muscle weakness. Poplar Fruit tried to let go, but Wu Xin immediately fell back and fell on the cushion. Song Qian didn't need to do anything. She had already lost. Next, Sister Na shook her head and came on stage with a domineering look. "I want to fight 3. Sister Na waved her hand, but in her tone, there was a kind of heroism that would never return. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. One had to know that in the last round, Sister Na also shouted such bold words, but she still didn't blow out a single candle. Sister Na shouldn't be able to do it, right? Song Qian is so powerful. Fong Beibei pouted and said, "In the end, Uncle has to come out and save the world." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Keep watching. There will be a very classic scene here." Sister Na went up. Although she was also wearing high heels, she was more stable than Haidao. After they steadied themselves, He announced the start of the competition. The first one to attack was Song Shi. However, she only pushed her hands out to test the waters. She did not touch anyone. But when she took it back, Sister Na had already taken the opportunity to make a move. Sister Na pushed Song Qian's shoulders with both hands, and Song Qian staggered and fell back. Ah! Ah! Fong Beibei couldn't help but scream. She quickly covered her mouth for fear of disturbing Kiki, but she still stared at the TV. The production crew had actually used slow motion to film this scene. When Song Qian fell backwards, she was on her tiptoes and her lower abdomen was pushed outwards. Her upper body was tilted backwards, almost forming a 90-degree angle. But she did not fall. At this moment, Song Shi's whole body bounced back like a spring. With this force, Song Shi pushed Sister Na with her left hand. Sister Na could no longer control her body balance and fell out of the yoga ball. Many of the audience were already exclaiming. I believe that more of the audience in front of the TV were like Fong Beibei. They couldn't help but be excited. Amazing, amazing, Fong Beibei said enviously. How did she do it? She practiced dancing since she was a child. Poplar Fruit smiled. Her body is very flexible. Mine is not good. I can't even get down. Fong Beibei pouted, holding Poplar Fruit's hand and said, Isn't the body test pressing down to touch the toes? I can't even touch it. It doesn't matter. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, We don't need to be so soft. We just need to be healthy. Fong Beibei pouted. The more Poplar Fruit looked at her, the more he liked her. He simply lowered his head and kissed her. The two played around and survived the advertisement. Finally, it was time for Poplar Fruit to appear. You have to fight 3 people again. Fong Beibei felt wronged for Poplar Fruit. This is not fair. Poplar Fruit was seen walking on the yoga ball with the help of Poplar Fruit. Of course, he didn't need to be helped. Poplar Fruit could also go up by himself. However, showing weakness to the enemy is also a small tactic. Start over. Song Qian, who had just won the audience with her super flexibility, stood steadily opposite Poplar Fruit. She had already defeated 3 members of Poplar Fruit's group. She was full of confidence. She looked at Poplar Fruit with a bright smile as if victory was already in sight. However, that was Poplar Fruit. He stood on the yoga ball and slowly swayed up and down. This was not because he could not stand steadily, but because he could maintain a swaying rhythm and wait for an explosion. Song Qian suddenly pushed out a hand, just like how she defeated Fatty Haitao and Sister Na. Her speed was very fast. However, Yang Guo's speed was even faster. On the yoga ball, his body leaned back slightly and spun in a clockwise arc. Not only did he cause Song Qian's hand to miss, but he also grabbed her hand. Poplar Fruit's original intention was to pull, but he considered that if Song Qian fell forward, there would be no cushion in front of her. It might be dangerous. Therefore, Poplar Fruit held down Song Qian's hand, turned around, and gently pushed. Song Qian could not stand under the force of Poplar Fruit's rotation. She fell out of the yoga ball and took 2 steps back. If it was said that Song Qian's matrix style of leaning back had made the hosts exclaim in surprise, then Yang Guo's arc swaying on the yoga ball had made everyone, including the audience, dumbfounded. Uncle, how did you do it? Fong Beibei asked the same question as Teacher He. Poplar Fruit on TV smiled shyly and said, No, my sense of balance is better. I actually stand very steadily on this yoga ball. Amidst everyone's exclamations, Yang Guo's legs seemed to have taken root in a yoga ball. He actually started to shake violently, even more violently than when he dealt with Song Qian. Poplar Fruit, are you the reincarnation of a roly-poly? Vega hit the nail on the head. Everyone thought of a roly-poly. Wasn't its chassis very similar to the yoga ball? Suddenly, there was another burst of laughter from the audience. Song Qian has lost. How are we going to win? Teacher He looked at Poplar Fruit, who was standing steadily on the yoga ball, and sighed helplessly. All_kill. All_kill. Under Haitao's incitement, the audience below the stage shouted in unison. Everyone hoped to see a miracle, Yang Guo's team being completely wiped out, and the opponent not losing a single member. Uncle, you won't continue to throw the game, right? In the previous game, Poplar Fruit later told her that he had taken the initiative to throw the game for the show's effect. No, I won't. Poplar Fruit laughed. You see, it's already clear who's stronger and who's weaker. If I throw the game, the audience won't be happy. Sure enough, after Vega's challenge and teacher his mutual destruction failed, Poplar Fruit completed the feat of an all-kill. Chapter 865. With the success of the first two segments, the third game felt a little plain. During the commercial, Fong Beibei was playing with Poplar Fruit's mobile phone. Suddenly, she burst into laughter. Poplar Fruit had just sent Kiki, who had finally fallen asleep, back to her room. After coming out, he looked at Fong Beibei and asked with a smile, "What's so funny? Your Weibo has a lot more followers," but a lot of people replied that they like the cute Kiki. They strongly urge Kiki to come on stage again. Fong Beibei smiled proudly. It wasn't clear if she was proud of Kiki's popularity, or if she thought that Poplar Fruit wasn't as famous as Kiki, but it was funny. It was definitely the latter. Poplar Fruit knocked on Fong Beibei's head and said with a smile, "You're just gloating." After Kiki went to sleep, Poplar Fruit hugged Fong Beibei. Previously, she was just leaning against him, but now, Fong Beibei's upper body was lying in Poplar Fruit's arms. This was Kiki's favorite position. It was broad and comfortable, giving people a stable sense of security. Poplar Fruit asked Fong Beibei to help post on Weibo, telling the fans that Kiki would appear in the next segment. Science Experiment Station. Fong Beibei said happily. "I love watching this segment the most. Will Kiki really appear?" She saw Poplar Fruit nod, then she happily posted the Weibo. At the beginning, a few people appeared on the screen with various kinds of grimaces. Fong Beibei laughed happily. "Aya, they're all funny. Uncle, your grimace is the least successful." "It's not a grimace, it's obviously electricity." Poplar Fruit still looked handsome with one eye closed. This episode of the Science Experiment Station was related to electricity. Mr. He also asked Song Qian to do a dance with their group. The song was also called Electric Shock. Song Qian is so beautiful. She has a great figure, Fong Beibei said enviously as she watched Song Qian's twisting body dance. Poplar Fruit had a different opinion. He said, "It's just SOSO. I don't think this dance is good. It's just deliberately acting cute. But she's so beautiful. She's so beautiful in her 20s. Fong Beibei said with a pout. "Our baby is so young and beautiful. You're so beautiful, so beautiful, so beautiful, so." Fong Beibei, and Fong Beibei you of Fong Beibei, Fong. The Science Experiment Station's first experiment was an electrostatic metal ball, which was injected with 1 million volts of electricity. Hearing this, Fong Beibei smiled and said, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It's okay to touch it. We usually have more than 10,000 volts of static electricity when we take off our sweaters." Most people with a little scientific knowledge knew that there was no problem. The highlight was when a girl like Sister Na walked up and shook her head. Her hair was messy as if it was blown by a hairdryer. The most interesting one was Wu Xin. Her hair was longer. When it floated, she looked like a witch with fluttering hair in cartoons. After another segment of riding a bicycle to generate electricity, Kiki was finally going to go on stage. Haha, Kiki is also a little black-shirted person. Fong Beibei covered her mouth and laughed. Why did she change into black clothes? Isn't that right? Kiki followed 3 other 5 or 6-year-old boys to the stage. She and the 3 little brothers were all wearing black clothes. Kiki was wearing a black dress, while the other 3 little boys were wearing handsome black leather armor or suits. "There is a break during the recording," Poplar Fruit explained to Fong Beibei, "so after the yoga ball, I took her backstage to change her clothes." Kiki was less than 2 years old. Compared with the other little brothers, she was shorter by a head. However, she looked more lively. The 3 little boys, Jin Tuor, Maro Tuor, Anan, and Kiki. Everyone could probably guess their group from their names. The children were very cute. Jin Tuor was cute, and Maro Tuor spoke Mandarin with an accent. It was difficult for everyone to hide their love. Anan, who was in Kiki's group, was more versatile. The 6-year-old boy completely danced Song Qian's dance. However, the little boy started in the wrong direction, which made everyone laugh. When it was Kiki's turn, Kiki also performed her singing skills. To be honest, Kiki's singing was a bit lacking. However, her pronunciation was clear and her singing was very clear. Since she was my daughter, everyone's expectations were not too high. They all praised and applauded. Fang Beibei said happily, "Chichi, I was the one who taught her to sing this song. I mentioned it." Poplar Fruit said with a smile and pointed to the TV. Sure enough, Sister Na pulled Poplar Fruit and asked, "Poplar Fruit, your daughter's singing is so good. She must have inherited your good genes. I haven't seen you perform before. Why don't you perform too?" Sister Na was kind. She felt that Poplar Fruit was very good in all aspects. He was neither arrogant nor impatient. He was the material to mix in the entertainment industry. Therefore, she wanted to find out more about Poplar Fruit and help Poplar Fruit gain a foothold. She felt that Poplar Fruit was being polite when he said that he wasn't a star. Of course, Poplar Fruit couldn't sing. He smiled bitterly and said, "I don't sing well. Really, I often go out of tune. The reason why Kiki can sing so well is because my girlfriend taught her well." Next, the groups were divided. Unfortunately, the dancer Anan couldn't be in the same group as his idol because he wanted to be with Kiki. Therefore, Kiki chose her father. Being able to play games with her father, Kiki was very happy. She jumped and snuggled up to her father's side. Poplar Fruit's eyes were also filled with gentleness. Who knows how many audience members were touched? The game was called Friction Electricity. Poplar Fruit and Song Qian had to hold a small balloon and rub it on the child's head. Then, it would be attached to the whiteboard behind. Short hair is more likely to cause static electricity, right? Poplar Fruit smiled and touched Kiki's long hair and said, "Maybe, Sister Song Qian, your side isn't as good as ours. Although Kiki has long hair, Anan's hair is super short. How can that be? This time, we will win," Song Qian said unconvinced. The game started immediately. Not long after, Fong Beibei burst out laughing. She hugged Poplar Fruit's hand and laughed, "Aya, so, Kiki is the big black hole." Just as Poplar Fruit said, short hair is more likely to cause static electricity. After Poplar Fruit rubbed 2 balloons on Anan's hair, Kiki was unhappy. She took a balloon and put it on her father's hand. She even pulled her father's hand and hit her head. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit quickly pulled it back. Otherwise, the balloon might have burst. Poplar Fruit was helpless. He could only take the balloon and rub it on Kiki's head. Kiki giggled. She felt her hair was itchy and stretched out her hand to scratch it. However, the balloon that had been rubbed on Kiki's head was very difficult to stick. Poplar Fruit saw that after Song Qian's side failed several times, she secretly took the balloon and ran over to Poplar Fruit's side to rub it on Anan's head. Then, she ran back to stick it on Anan's head. Meanwhile, the 2 little boys on her side took the balloon and hit it on her head, rubbing it too hard. The scene was very chaotic and dramatic. The audience below the stage could not stop laughing. Fong Beibei was very anxious. However, Poplar Fruit was still being pestered by his daughter. The hosts had already joined in the scuffle. Later, Poplar Fruit had a quick-witted idea. He let Kiki take the balloon and rub it on Anan's head. Then, he passed it to her father. In the end, a few more balloons were stuck. The final result was no longer important. The cute Kiki's interaction with her father made everyone convulse with laughter. They forgot about the outcome and the game. This episode of Happy Stronghold finally came to an end amidst laughter and laughter. Chapter 866. After watching the show, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei calmly went to bed, completely ignoring the new wave of heated discussion brought about by Poplar Fruit and his daughter on Weibo and other social media. He and Fong Beibei did not feel that the national variety show last time would have any impact on them. It was as if Poplar Fruit had only attended a bonfire party between friends. The next day, when Poplar Fruit went to school, the students in the German class looked at Poplar Fruit strangely. Only then did Poplar Fruit know that he was famous. Moreover, he was far more famous than when he returned from Ba Li. Flowers blooming outside the walls may not be fragrant inside the walls. After all, the domestic environment was there. However, For a super popular national variety show like Fastbook, as long as one went on it once, they would be remembered by tens of thousands of viewers. The first day was fine, but on the second day, Poplar Fruit and Kiki actually made the hot headlines on Weibo with super strong momentum, and even occupied the hot search page on Baidu. In the hot search for entertainment celebrities, the first keyword was Poplar Fruit, followed by Poplar Fruit and Kiki, and the third was other celebrities. Although everyone started to discuss Poplar Fruit online, in reality, Poplar Fruit exposed very little information. Even the Baidu encyclopedia that netizens created for him only had one page, and it was clear at a glance. The more it was like this, the more curious people were about Poplar Fruit. There were three main issues that they were debating on the internet. Was Poplar Fruit really as awesome as he said? He actually knew 13 foreign languages and was proficient in them. How old was Poplar Fruit? Why did he have a daughter who still looked like a handsome college student? Poplar Fruit claimed that he had no intention of returning to the modeling world. Was it true, or was he pretending? In terms of language, Poplar Fruit's ability was recognized by many so-called experts. Many foreign language students even came forward to say that Poplar Fruit's spoken English was definitely first class or even super first class. Poplar Fruit had shown that he could speak more than 8 foreign languages fluently. As for whether he could speak 13 foreign languages, was there a need to argue about this? Aside from this question, there was a lot of praise. As for the other two questions, because everyone knew too little about Poplar Fruit, they could only express their opinions on the internet and argue endlessly. Of course, in addition to Poplar Fruit, Kiki also received a lot of attention. The little girl's innocent and cute performance on stage was called cuteness in the face by netizens. Following the exposure of Poplar Fruit's Kiki's father on Weibo, every detail of Kiki's growth since she was born was dug out by her fans. There was even a video producer who was full of maternal love who collected all the photos posted by Poplar Fruit and made a video full of love. I cried watching it. After watching this video, I also want to have such a cute daughter. Don't say anything. Wife, let's have a daughter. Who told me that I value boys over girls? I'll beat him to death. I don't want a boy, I want a daughter. If I can have such a daughter, I'll have no regrets in life. Of course, Kiki, with her red lips, white teeth, and bright eyes, was becoming more and more popular. The comments gradually went astray. Father-in-law, please accept me. I'm willing to keep my chastity for Kiki and wait for her for 16 years. The person above is a beast. Let go of Kiki, let me do it. Father-in-law, I'm willing to give you 1,000 pieces of gold as a betrothal gift. Gradually, Poplar Fruit, who was in his early 20s, was being pushed to the altar of the nation's father-in-law by various strange uncles and netizens. Poplar Fruit did not know about this, as he was busy dealing with all kinds of harassment from the media. How could he have the time to check Weibo? Indeed, people are afraid of being famous, and pigs are afraid of being fat. Previously, when Poplar Fruit returned from Ba Li, many of the media gave up because they could not find him. This time, they simply went to his office and did not want to leave. There was even a media company with a strong background that directly went to Chen Zhongdai. You've created this mess, so quickly solve it. Chen Zhongdai was annoyed, but he could not refuse. So, he called Poplar Fruit and asked him to make a decision. The one who went to Chen Zhongdai was a reporter from Nanyu Evening News, and Poplar Fruit was no stranger to them. Back then, Yarrow Dehua had found Nanyu Evening News to support him, and the newspaper they were in represented the bold and emotional attitude of Nanyu. They dared to break the rules and dare to raise doubts. Overall, Poplar Fruit had a good impression of them. Among the media companies that went to him were many well-known newspapers in the country, such as Yangcheng Evening News. However, Poplar Fruit was not interested in Yangcheng Evening News. Back then, he accepted their interview, but in the end, he was given a small tofu block position. It was not that Poplar Fruit wanted to make a gimmick, but it was a matter of attitude. Poplar Fruit also saw an old acquaintance among the media companies, Dong Run. He was still in Tengzun, and after a year, he was still the chief editor and reporter of the photo news column of A Day in Chinese People's Lives. However, this column had grown from a bumpy news state last year to the backbone and feature of Tengzun's news today. Dong Run's position in Tengzun's news was self-evident, but today, he still led a team to show that he valued Poplar Fruit. In the end, Poplar Fruit only accepted an interview from Nanyu Evening News and Dong Run of Tengzun's news. The other newspapers could only sigh and leave. They could not get first-hand news, so they could only go back and cook up cold rice. Of course, there were also a few clever reporters who tried to find another way and tried to start with the students who knew Poplar Fruit. Although it was not as authoritative as Poplar Fruit's own answer, their report also gained a lot of attention when looking at Poplar Fruit from a different perspective. Sometimes, I really don't know whether to call him senior or teacher. A few girls covered their mouths and laughed. I think he's more like a teacher. A girl with glasses was more determined. Teacher Young's lectures are very wise. He can remember all of our shortcomings and then teach us all. It was very abstract, and the reporters were skeptical. Just call him senior. Another girl dressed very nicely said with a smile. He's so handsome, and he's our age. Calling him teacher makes him sound old. We all like him so much, but it's a pity that senior already has a child. Some reporters even found Poplar Fruit's nominal roommate, and Ding Wenjiang was stopped downstairs. Ding Wenjiang spoke in Mandarin with a thick Nanjiang accent and nervously answered the reporter's questions. Poplar Fruit doesn't live in the dormitory. He has a child, and it's not convenient for him to live in the dormitory. Hence, he took the initiative to find an apartment outside. He's a good person. When we first entered the school, it was Poplar Fruit who brought us around the campus and often treated us to meals. Yang Guo doesn't like to be famous. He told us that he likes to stay in school. He doesn't have the ambition to bring peace to the world. He only has the spirit of a scholar to continue learning for the world. He's really formidable. The school got him to substitute for French, German, Mandarin, and so on. He's competent in all of them. Do you think that he's proficient? The interviews continued. In November, Poplar Fruit had already become a phenomenon. Chapter 867. On the morning of the fourth day, the newsstands on the streets and alleys quietly changed their newspapers for a new day. Placed right in the middle was the most popular Nanyu Evening News. China's top male model, Poplar Fruit, I'm just an ordinary person with a dream. The big title and the bright smile of a big boy on the front page attracted the attention of many passing office workers. They were rushing to get to work, so they stopped for a moment. When they left, the Nanyu Evening News was already under their arms. Using Poplar Fruit as the headline, the Nanyu Evening News really thought highly of Poplar Fruit. After all, the Nanyu Evening News wasn't a weekly magazine, nor was it an entertainment tabloid. The last time they used a person as the headline, it was when teacher Mo Yang won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Flipping open the newspaper, one could see the detailed introduction and interview of Poplar Fruit. They used 3 key words to evaluate Poplar Fruit. The first key word was quiet. This quiet wasn't the quiet of a handsome man. The reporter said, when I talked to Poplar Fruit, I felt that he was very calm. He wasn't agitated, aggressive, or deliberately mystifying. From Poplar Fruit's experience, it wasn't hard to understand his calmness. After all, he was a famous person who had seen the world. However, Poplar Fruit was different from other celebrities. He had a gentle and elegant temperament, which made the reporter feel comfortable interviewing Poplar Fruit. Just like how the audience felt when they were watching the game, this quiet big boy had a heart that warmed others. In the process of interviewing Yang Guo, many students came to greet Yang Guo. It could be seen that Yang Guo's popularity was very good. Sometimes, when people saw his daughter, they would mistakenly think that Poplar Fruit was in his late 20s. But in reality, he was only 25 years old. Today, he was still a postgraduate student at Higoshiyama University. He was the favorite student of Chen Zhongdai, the dean of the External Academy of Higoshiyama University and the director of the Institute of Functional Linguistics in China. He was such a quiet boy, but after more than half a month of special training, he became the top male model in the country. The second key word was work hard. Nanyu Evening News quoted Poplar Fruit's reply. It's mainly because my physical fitness is better. I've practiced martial arts before, so I have better control of my body than ordinary people. That's why I can learn faster. Speaking of geniuses, I really don't have one. My success is entirely due to Givenchy's careful nurturing and my own hard work. Givenchy has arranged 2 top modeling mentors for me. One of them has imparted a wealth of theoretical knowledge to me, while the other has taught me a lot of tricks and experience on the runway. During the half a month of special training, the mentors worked very hard. They practiced with me from 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening. Of course, hard work is also very important. At night, apart from coaxing my daughter to sleep, they would also take time to study the videos provided by the mentors and practice for a few hours. Apart from the modeling aspect, Nanu Evening News also focused on another aspect that everyone was curious about. How was Poplar Fruit's studies? Was he really as proficient in 13 foreign languages as he claimed to be? For the sake of objectivity, Nanu Evening News did not interview Poplar Fruit on this question. Earlier on, another batch of people had found teachers from the foreign language school in Guangdong province and asked them to evaluate Yang Guo's translations of Mo Yang's works in different languages. There was no need for further evaluation. The teachers were all in awe of Poplar Fruit's ability. That's right, it was respect, not praise. Poplar Fruit's ability as a native speaker made most of the teachers feel ashamed. In the interview, Poplar Fruit revealed a little about his study method. Although he felt that he did not spend much time on his studies, it was important for him to persevere. He would spend at least 2 hours a day reading and studying, independent of his working hours. Nanu Evening News praised, only through hard work can he explain his amazing and even questionable result. They also found out that before Poplar Fruit officially entered the school, he had already submitted a thesis that was successfully published on an authoritative newspaper in China, Translators. He even made a keynote report in the National Applied Translation Symposium in August this year. As a postgraduate student, Poplar Fruit could be said to be the first person in China to make a keynote report in such a large national conference. Through his daily translation research, he discovered the theory of variation, which was praised by Professor Luo Lin of the Beijing Foreign Language University as a discovery that would revolutionize the translation industry. Although the Nanu Evening News did not say it directly, everyone could feel that even if Poplar Fruit did not develop his modeling career, he was still riding the waves in his field. The third key word was responsibility. For the first time, Poplar Fruit told everyone about Kiki's birth. When she was just born, her mother died in childbirth. As the child's father, Poplar Fruit had no choice but to bear the responsibility of raising his daughter. When she was just born, it was tough to take care of her. Whenever I wasn't by her side and she couldn't hear my heartbeat, she would cry non-stop. Poplar Fruit told the reporter. After taking leave, I went to work. Halfway through, I sneaked back. Because she refused to drink milk, she cried herself hoarse. In the end, I had no choice but to resign. I was forced to become a translator because I had no choice but to stay at home. But later on, I realized that I was suited for and loved to deal with all kinds of languages. When the Nanu Evening News talked about Poplar Fruit's past, there wasn't any regret or lament, but happiness. His daughter did not become Poplar Fruit's burden, and this heavy responsibility had stimulated Poplar Fruit's potential, allowing him to achieve everything that was impossible now. Back then, she was a tiny life in my palm, connected by blood. Although I was muddle-headed, my inner voice told me that she was my daughter, and I had to bear this responsibility. 2 years have passed, and Kiki has also grown up a little. She can run and jump, and she can even tell her father that she loves him. With her around, every day is blissful and sweet. The Nanu Evening News emotionally quoted Poplar Fruit's words and even told everyone a piece of news. Poplar Fruit has confirmed that he has a girlfriend. Thank you for your concern. My girlfriend is great, and she has taken good care of my daughter. We are very happy. But I hope that everyone can give us some privacy, and I hope that everyone can understand my pursuit. Poplar Fruit is just an ordinary person. The Nanu Evening News continued to stir up emotions and concluded, Poplar Fruit is not an ordinary person, and he has given us great inspiration for the past 2 years. Happiness isn't easy, and it requires hard work. I hope that everyone with dreams can be like Poplar Fruit, braving through trials and hardships and walking with love. Chapter 868. Ding dong. Poplar Fruit picked up his phone and glanced at it. It was a message from Fong Beibei. He asked, "Have the reporters left?" "They left." Poplar Fruit smiled and quickly replied. The reporters from Tengzun News had been following Poplar Fruit that day. There were 4 cameras of different lengths. Even when Poplar Fruit was teaching the students, they hid behind the classroom and took pictures. Fong Beibei went to the library early to avoid the reporters. After the reporters left, Poplar Fruit sent her a message to tell her that she could come back. However, Fong Beibei was probably eating or reading in the library with her phone on silent mode, so she took a long time to see him. After a while, Poplar Fruit heard the sound of the key unlocking the door. He stood up and went up to her. "Baby, have you eaten?" Poplar Fruit went up and wanted to take Fong Beibei's bag. However, Fong Beibei hid her hands behind her back and didn't let him touch her. "I've eaten." Fong Beibei shook her head and said with a smile, "Didn't you say that they wanted to take pictures of you cooking?" "I'm eating in the canteen." "What are you doing? Why are you acting like this?" "I'm not a big bad wolf." Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei's timid and pitiful look. He laughed and said, "What did you buy? Why are you hiding it?" "Aya, you can't look." Fong Beibei stomped her feet and said angrily, "Turn around and go back to your room." "I didn't say that you can turn around, so you can't turn around." He didn't know what she was trying to do. He just had to cooperate. Poplar Fruit shrugged and turned around to walk into the bedroom. Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit's back. She rolled her eyes and the corners of her mouth started to curl up. "Don't look back." Fong Beibei was worried and shouted again. Then, she tiptoed to the kitchen with the things on her back. Poplar Fruit did not turn around, but he said casually, "What?" Fang Beibei was taken aback by his strange behavior. Just as Fong Beibei was about to reach the kitchen, Kiki, who had heard the news, rushed over like a little traitor. Her eyes were wide open. She was a little confused and a little excited as she pointed at the thing Fong Beibei was carrying and shouted, "Cake? Cake." It was like a spy who had changed his name for many years and was about to successfully come into contact with his target. In the end, an ignorant elementary school friend saw him and exclaimed excitedly, "Hu Han-san, why are you here?" Although the cake was in a box, the outside of the box was printed with the appearance of the cake. Kiki recognized it at a glance. Fong Beibei panicked and wanted to hide it, but Poplar Fruit had already turned his head. He looked at Fong Beibei in surprise and asked curiously, "Baby, why did you buy a cake?" "Kiki knows." Chichi jumped on the ground vigorously to express the excitement in her heart. She chirped and cheered, "It's Chichi's birthday, Chichi wants to eat cake." Of course, it wasn't Kiki's birthday. Her birthday was at the end of April. But when it came to her birthday, Poplar Fruit blinked and exchanged glances with Fong Beibei, who was pouting unhappily. Fong Beibei looked at him, and Poplar Fruit also looked at her. The two of them had each other in their eyes, and the emotions in Poplar Fruit's eyes were gradually heating up. It was even going to melt the two of them. "Come, put it in the fridge. Otherwise, it'll melt later." Poplar Fruit walked over and reached out to take the cake in Fong Beibei's hands. He opened the fridge door and put the cake in. Fong Beibei was still standing at the same spot. Her mouth was slightly pouting, and she was very unwilling to accept it. Poplar Fruit turned around and gently hugged his girlfriend. Just as he was about to say something, he was interrupted by the noisy Kiki. "Oh Tilda, no, no. Kiki wants to eat cake. Kiki wants to eat cake." Chichi became anxious and threw a tantrum unhappily. She jumped up high and tugged at her father's pants, almost ripping them off. "Cut the cake later. It's not time yet." Poplar Fruit stared at Kiki and said. However, Kiki was still circling around her father. She was unwilling to let him go. "Forget it." Fong Beibei understood that Poplar Fruit wanted to take care of her. She gently shook her head and said, "Kiki saw it, so why don't you take it out and eat it together? Originally, I wanted to cut it tonight and put it in the fridge. It won't taste so good later." Poplar Fruit followed behind Fong Beibei and watched her take out the cake from the fridge. At this time, Chichi stopped making a fuss. She called out, and a golden shadow jumped down from the sofa in the living room. It ran over and lay down at Chichi's feet with ease. Chichi stepped on the dog-shaped cushion and climbed up the chair with a twist of her butt. Quickly go and support Kiki. Don't fall. Although Fong Beibei had seen it many times, she was always frightened. Kiki stood on tiptoe. Her head popped out from the table. She leaned on the table, gasped for breath, and happily said, Kiki's birthday again. There's cake to eat on her birthday, and there are many, many gifts. Don't make trouble. It's not your birthday. Your birthday is 5 months away. Poplar Fruit smiled and picked up the little fellow. He pulled over Kiki's exclusive baby seat and put her in it. Ah! It's not Kiki's birthday? Kiki blinked her eyes in confusion. She didn't understand. If it wasn't Kiki's birthday, then why was there a cake? It's your papa's birthday. Fong Beibei smiled and used her clean finger to touch the cream on the box. She gently touched Kiki's nose. Kiki suddenly became a white-nosed baby, that is to say, you don't have cake to eat today, and you don't have any gifts to receive. Poplar Fruit looked at Kiki stretching out her tongue to lick the cream on the tip of her nose. He smiled and threatened Kiki. No, no. Kiki was anxious. The little foodie opened her arms like an angel's wings, wanting to pounce over to protect the tempting big cake in front of her. Don't listen to your papa. Seeing Poplar Fruit hurriedly supporting Kiki, who ignored the danger, Fong Beibei covered her mouth and laughed. The cake was bought by Sister Beibei. Sister Beibei said that Kiki can eat cake, so I can eat it. Kiki beamed with joy and clapped her hands. She said sweetly, Kiki likes Sister Beibei the most. Uncle, turn off the light. Fong Beibei had already put in the candles and lit them one by one. After Poplar Fruit turned off the light, she said softly, you need to close your eyes and make a wish first. Under the flickering candlelight, Poplar Fruit walked over. He first picked up Kiki, then put his other hand around Fong Beibei's waist. He looked at her affectionately and said, I already need a wish. I hope. Fong Beibei pressed Poplar Fruit's lips and said angrily, don't say it out loud. If you say it out loud, it won't come true. Blow out the candles. Kiki raised her hand weakly and asked, can Kiki blow out the candles? Of course you can. I hope that the babies and Kiki can blow out the candles with me. Poplar Fruit smiled and said firmly. Fart. Kiki had already begun to take action. However, although half a year had passed, Kiki's ability to blow out candles had not improved. She was just like before, only spitting saliva. Most of the candles were blown out by Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei together. He hugged his girlfriend's waist tightly and softly repeated the wish he had just made in his heart. I hope that my 2 babies, Little Fairy and Big Fairy, can be healthy and safe. I hope that we can live happily for the rest of our lives. Chapter 869. After the little fellow ate the cake, she was exceptionally excited and did not feel sleepy for a long time. Poplar Fruit and the rest also accompanied her to create havoc in heaven before coaxing her to take a bath and sleep. After finishing the bedtime story, when Poplar Fruit came out of the bedroom, Fong Beibei was standing on the balcony collecting clothes. Poplar Fruit pushed open the glass door of the balcony and gently walked out. Without waiting for Fong Beibei to turn around, he wrapped his arms around Fong Beibei from behind and hugged her. Fong Beibei's body stiffened for a moment before she gently leaned into Poplar Fruit's embrace. When we move to the new house, we'll build a bamboo rocking chair on the balcony. That way, I can hug you and accompany you to look at the sky, the stars, and the moon, Poplar Fruit said affectionately. But, Yang Cheng is filled with clouds, where would we be able to see the stars and the moon? Fong Beibei pretended to be innocent and said, this lass, she must be doing it on purpose. Then I'll accompany you to look at the clouds and the lights of the city, Poplar Fruit cleverly replied. Clouds and clouds, that means it's going to rain soon and we have to collect the clothes. How would I have the mood to sit on the rocking chair with you? Fong Beibei giggled as she said. Aya, so disobedient. It was supposed to be a beautiful scene in name only, but the beauty did not understand the situation and played the zither. Poplar Fruit angrily tickled her. Fong Beibei giggled and struggled until she had no strength left. In the end, she softly let Poplar Fruit hug her. It was dark outside and there was nothing to see. Poplar Fruit carried Fong Beibei back and casually placed the clothes that were half collected on the back of the chair. He then carried Fong Beibei back to the sofa and the two continued to chat. How did you know that tomorrow is my birthday? I almost forgot. Poplar Fruit affectionately gazed at Fong Beibei, his palm gently caressing her somewhat thin cheeks. Her skin was smooth and delicate, making Poplar Fruit unable to part with it. Of course I will. Fong Beibei smiled and said, I saw your ID card and secretly confirmed it with Brother Mosquito. Why don't you remember? Have you never celebrated your birthday before? Before university, my family only cooked 2 eggs for my birthday. There wasn't much of a birthday celebration. Of course, it's also because my family is poor. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, later, after Kiki was born, all my thoughts were on her. How could I remember my own birthday? There was a period of time when Poplar Fruit did not say, but Fong Beibei also understood. During their university years, every birthday, Poplar Fruit was accompanied by a girl. Although in the end, they did not walk together, Fong Beibei knew that those memories were once beautiful. Fong Beibei's nose was a little sour, but she still mustered up her courage. Biting her lower lip, she looked at Poplar Fruit and said seriously, Uncle, in the future, I will celebrate your birthday every year. Poplar Fruit lowered his head and gently planted a kiss on her thin lips. It was not a deep kiss, but a light kiss and then separated. He grabbed Fong Beibei's hand and said softly, of course. I will also celebrate your birthday with you year after year. You have to make a pinky promise with me. At this moment, Fong Beibei turned into a spoiled my daughter. Just like Kiki, her voice was sticky, making people's heart turn tender. Okay. Poplar Fruit smiled and stretched out his right hand. I want your left hand. Fong Beibei said with a smile. You're picky when it comes to pinky promise? Poplar Fruit was a little confused, but he still stretched out his left hand that was hugging her and gently raised his pinky finger. Fong Beibei pulled Poplar Fruit's left hand and raised her head, blocking Poplar Fruit's line of sight. Poplar Fruit only felt that his pinky finger was pressed down and his middle finger was pulled up. Before he could ask, he felt that something seemed to be put on his left middle finger. What's this? Fong Beibei let go. Poplar Fruit raised his hand and looked at it suspiciously. It was a round ring without any patterns. It was shiny and smooth. A ring. Fong Beibei raised her left hand and pressed her fingers against Poplar Fruit's. Her slender middle finger was also wearing a ring with the same design as Poplar Fruit's. The store said that this is a love ring. Don't you think it looks too ugly? Poplar Fruit twisted the ring and put it on tightly. He then stretched out his hand and pinched Fong Beibei's nose. He blamed her and said, Did you use all the money I gave you to buy a ring? Yang Guo earned money very quickly as a translator. She rarely checked her credit cards. After all, it was impossible for her to spend so much money that she needed to overdraft. He gave Fong Beibei a supplementary card, but Fong Beibei had never used it. She basically used her own money. Poplar Fruit loved his girlfriend, so he usually gave Fong Beibei a lot of money to spend. This pair of rings wasn't expensive. According to Fong Beibei's character, she must have secretly picked for a long time before she found this pair. Of course, Yang Guo didn't care about the value of the ring, nor did he care about the appearance of the ring. When he saw the rings on Fong Beibei and his hands, his heart was filled to the brim. Fong Beibei giggled as she hugged Poplar Fruit's waist with one hand and leaned on his chest. She raised her left hand and gestured under the light. The silver light on her fingers was dazzling. Silly. Poplar Fruit lifted Fong Beibei's hair with his right hand and kissed her on the cheek. His left hand caught Fong Beibei's left hand. Their fingers with the rings intertwined, feeling the warmth of the rings on each other's fingers. Baby. Poplar Fruit whispered in Fong Beibei's ear, Thank you. Thank you for preparing this surprise for me so carefully. He guessed it. Fong Beibei must have started preparing a long time ago. She even hid it from Poplar Fruit for so long. Today, she might have been running around outside for a long time, busy ordering a cake for Poplar Fruit. She wanted to give Poplar Fruit a surprise when it was almost midnight. Unfortunately, the cake was discovered by Kiki. The surprise was only left with joy. The ring is the birthday present. Fong Beibei buried her head in Poplar Fruit's arms and giggled. Fortunately, I hid it. Otherwise, it would be a big loss. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and asked with some guilt, Baby, tell me, am I not qualified to be your boyfriend? I should have bought the ring, but it was you who remembered it. The two had confirmed their relationship for nearly 3 months. Their relationship could be said to have warmed up since they boarded the Shenzhou 8 spaceship. But even so, Poplar Fruit still didn't know how to create romance for his girlfriend. The two of them didn't even buy a couple of matching shirts to show their affection. No. Fong Beibei shook her head and said softly, I just like your honest character. I like what you said to me outside. Sitting in a rocking chair with you and slowly growing old with you, that's the most romantic thing I think. Chapter 870. Poplar Fruit's popularity continued to rise. Nanyu Evening News in-depth analysis allowed many readers to see another side of China's top male model. Of course, if it was just Nanyu Evening News, its influence would be limited. However, it was the age of the internet. When all the media were confused and could not find any more information about Poplar Fruit, Nanyu Evening News received the first-hand report. Hence, all the major media outlets on the internet began to republish it. Before Nanyu Evening News could further expand its influence, Tengzun's photo news began to enter people's eyes. Of course, words were not as impactful as pictures. Many office buildings, cafes, restaurants, and other places where people gathered. The following scene repeated itself. Xiaoyun, come. I'll show you a handsome guy. Don't show me that Korean transvestite you're always chasing. Sissy, disgusting. How can that be? He's obviously Chinese. Let me tell you, super handsome. The pretty girl named Xiaoyun looked over and saw a handsome guy standing there smiling on her best friend's phone. His hair was wet with sweat and he was wiping it with a white towel in one hand. A ray of sunlight shone on his face, making it hard to tell whether it was the sunlight or his smile that was brighter. Isn't that Poplar Fruit? Xiaoyun covered her mouth and asked in surprise. She saw Poplar Fruit in the photo. He was wearing a singlet, revealing his well-proportioned and firm muscles. Against the contrast of the thin beads of sweat, he looked very manly. Does he look good? Her best friend asked Xiaoyun with a smile. Not only did he look good, Xiaoyun felt her heart racing and her face turning red. However, she could not take her eyes off the phone screen. She comforted herself that she was just admiring him. China's top male model should have such a good body. Handsome, right? Let me tell you, there are even more handsome ones later. Before her best friend finished speaking, her phone was snatched away by Xiaoyun. This photo was of Dong Run bringing a few photographers to Poplar Fruit's house early in the morning to shoot a day in the life of a Chinese. Even though they were early, arriving before 8 o'clock. However, Poplar Fruit's family woke up even earlier. When Dong Run and the others came over, Poplar Fruit had already brought his daughter and girlfriend back from the plaza dance. Recently, they had been going over every morning to help. It wasn't really helping. They were just exercising with the uncles and aunties for the sake of their health. Poplar Fruit didn't mind. After all, he had been working out consistently. However, Fong Beibei had been working out for the past few days. Her mental state was much better than before. That was why Poplar Fruit was so happy to pull her up every day to work out. In addition to square dancing, Poplar Fruit also practiced Taiji Fist and Xingyi Fist after he came back. When he moved to a new home and had more space, Poplar Fruit would pick up the two-handed Miaodao again. When Dong Run came over, Fong Beibei had already slipped away. Poplar Fruit had just taken a shower. The sweat on Poplar Fruit's face was actually water vapor that had not been completely wiped off. After following Poplar Fruit for a day, Dong Run collected a lot of material. In the end, he only selected the best 13 photos. The second photo was of Poplar Fruit and Kiki having breakfast together. Kiki was surrounded by so many uncles. She was a little shy and refused to open her mouth. Poplar Fruit was feeding her with a smile. The whole photo was full of fatherly love. The third photo was of Poplar Fruit combing Kiki's hair. Kiki changed into a bright and beautiful dress. She was finally not so reserved. She smiled very brightly, like a cute little elf coming out of the garden. In the second and third photos, the main characters were still Poplar Fruit. However, with Kiki there, it was as if all the glory was shining on her. People liked her so much that they couldn't wait to take her out of the screen. In the last 10 photos, several of them were photos of Poplar Fruit giving a lesson to the students. After the lesson, the students surrounded Poplar Fruit and asked questions. Poplar Fruit standing on the podium was completely different from the usual Poplar Fruit. The usual Poplar Fruit was more reserved and quiet, like an invisible person. However, after he walked on the podium, he shone brightly. It was a little like he was walking on the runway. He was like a fish in water in his own field, in high spirits. Of course, Yang Guo was not overly flamboyant. He was just showing off his strong confidence and elegant demeanor. He was like an old professor who had been in the field of linguistics for decades. Even though he was teaching without a script, he could still talk endlessly. After class in the morning, Poplar Fruit went to pick up Kiki. In the afternoon, Kiki was sleeping while he was sitting on the sofa reading. In the end, Dong Run asked him to sit beside the desk that was not so comfortable to take pictures. The small bookshelf was even rearranged by them, highlighting many books in different languages. It was as if this could better show Poplar Fruit's erudition. Poplar Fruit muttered in his heart, "If you see the 4 rows of bookshelves that are still at an landside, will you be shocked?" Although it was only the tip of the iceberg, Poplar Fruit still felt that this way of posing was a little too ostentatious, so his expression was a little stiff. Dong Run was only satisfied after taking a few photos. In the afternoon, Poplar Fruit was busy typing his thesis. Although Dong Run and the others did not manage to take photos of the screen in order to protect Poplar Fruit's intellectual property, they still managed to take photos of Poplar Fruit concentrating on his work. It was said that a focused man was the most handsome. Poplar Fruit pursed his lips and stared at the screen, capturing the hearts of many young girls who were yearning for love. Taking advantage of this boring time, a few photographers even went to look for Kiki. They played with Kiki and asked Kiki to tell them stories. Kiki still did not know what they were up to. However, with her father around, she was not afraid. Moreover, with someone playing with her, she was even happier. At the back, photos of Kiki actually occupied half of the screen. Even Dong Run, who originally took Poplar Fruit as the main character, could not help but kick Poplar Fruit away and replace it with the cute Kiki. 3 photos were chosen for the little girl. One was of her lying on the furry Goldie, as if she was riding a big horse. The warmth of her interaction with Goldie was touching. One was of Kiki hugging her Barbie doll and telling the photographers the story of pleasant goat-solving Barbie. She had made it up herself. Although it was very nonsensical, the little girl's serious look was also extremely cute. The last photo was of the little girl being a little annoyed by the uncles' and aunties' requests to pose for photos. She pouted angrily. Although she was not happy, the audience could not help but smile. Later, Poplar Fruit cooked and invited a few reporters and photographers who had worked hard for the day to eat together. When he was cooking, he was also photographed. However, in the end, the photo of Poplar Fruit's last dish was chosen. In front of Poplar Fruit, who was wearing an apron, was a table of delicious food. No matter how one looked at it, it was appetizing. The side of Poplar Fruit that was good at living was also dug out. The last photo was of Kiki sitting on her father's neck. The two of them sent off the reporters under the afterglow of the setting sun. It could be seen that after the departure of the reporters, the happy life of Poplar Fruit's family continued. "He's really a good man," Xiao Yun enviously said what many girls were thinking. "I also want a handsome boyfriend who knows how to take care of people." Unfortunately, Kiki and that girl must be very happy. Then, the question was, who was Poplar Fruit's girlfriend, the lucky girl? Chapter 871. The craziest rumor actually used Kiki as a target. The internet trolls spread rumors that Kiki was actually the proof of Poplar Fruit's chaotic early private life. What about her mother dying in childbirth? It was all a lie. Poplar Fruit relied on his handsome looks to deceive many ignorant girls. Among them, Kiki was born accidentally because of a failed protection measure. In order to not let the matter be exposed, Poplar Fruit had no choice but to accept this illegitimate daughter who was abandoned by her mother. Sometimes, rumors sounded more like facts. And the internet trolls actually fabricated such a non-existent mother. This made many fans who had once liked Poplar Fruit's fatherly love begin to doubt Poplar Fruit. Almost overnight, the evaluation of Poplar Fruit on the internet took a sharp turn. Poplar Fruit seemed to have become the target of public criticism. Many well-known Big V users followed the trend and forwarded the rumors about Poplar Fruit. Faintly, more and more internet trolls gathered behind this. Far away in Beijing, Li Zichao's eyes were red. He refreshed Weibo overnight and sneered. That's right. This time, a large number of internet trolls collectively poured dirty water on Poplar Fruit. Yesterday afternoon, Qin Shuai found Li Qingchao on the phone and said that there was an excellent opportunity to deal with Poplar Fruit. However, he asked for a very high price, 1 million. Li Zichao had been annoyed to death by all kinds of news about Poplar Fruit recently. It was as if he saw his love rival standing in front of him and showing off their love. His hatred for Poplar Fruit had long been irreversible. However, he had spent so much effort to deal with Poplar Fruit, but it seemed to have no effect. Instead, he had a faint feeling that he had helped Poplar Fruit. How could Li Zichao not go crazy? Just as he couldn't sleep or eat, Qin Shuai appeared in front of him like charcoal in the snow. After listening to Qin Shuai's description over the phone, Li Zichao was overjoyed and immediately agreed to Qin Shuai's plan. He wished he could beat Poplar Fruit to death with a stick. Not only did he give Qin Shuai 1 million yuan, he also threw out an additional 3 million yuan to let Qin Shuai gather more internet trolls. No matter what, this time, he had to ruin Poplar Fruit's reputation. Hee, Poplar Fruit. Li Zichao gritted his teeth and said angrily, "Do you think that the 4 million I threw out would only cause such a small commotion? Just you wait. Haha." Back on the internet, the next day, many of Poplar Fruit's fans were about to turn into haters, and an old Weibo post that was quickly forwarded dragged this scandal into a confusing situation. Because there were busybodies who wanted to see how the other person of the top student couple would react, they searched for Wang Di's Weibo for a long time. In the end, they even found the clarification Weibo post that he had posted last month. After being quickly forwarded, and some big VS who were purely fishing in troubled waters added fuel to the fire, this Weibo post spread widely. Everyone was surprised to find that everything didn't seem to be what they thought. The top student couple wasn't a couple at all? Then what was with the Weibo post he had posted previously? Wang Di finished his class during the day and turned on his phone's Weibo late in the afternoon. In the end, he saw that his Weibo had exploded. After understanding what was going on, Wang Di immediately posted a new Weibo post with a screenshot as proof. He said that he had never posted that Weibo post, and that he had never said that Fong Beibei was his girlfriend. "I don't know what intentions you have, maliciously tampering with my Weibo to spread rumors, but please stop spreading rumors about me and Fong Beibei. Senior Poplar Fruit and Junior Fong Beibei are a couple, and they have always been." Wang Di angrily wrote, "I can responsibly tell you that their relationship is very good and stable. On the day our team won the award, Senior Poplar Fruit specially rushed over from BA Li, and there are photos to prove it. He even posted a sweet photo of Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit holding the trophy after they received the award. In fact, before this, many of Poplar Fruit students and Fong Beibei's friends had posted on Weibo to clear Poplar Fruit's name. However, their words carried little weight after all, and their Weibo posts were like mud oxen entering water. Wang Di's Weibo post to clarify the matter quickly spread on the internet. After seeing Wang Di's Weibo post, the voices of public opinion gradually change. Even some fans who were wavering were full of praise when they saw the photo. The two of them are a perfect match. It was strange. Although many of Poplar Fruit's fans were girls, very few of them would mindlessly attack his relationship. Although some would still say that Fong Beibei was lucky, most of them expressed their understanding and blessings. Perhaps this was because he had made his relationship status clear from the beginning and did not hide it, so the fans were already mentally prepared. In the afternoon, the rumors from the internet water army began to lose their effect. This was because at this time, many respected seniors in the education industry, such as Luo Lin, Poplar Fruit's teacher, Chen Zhongdai, and teachers from Higoshiyama University who had interacted with Poplar Fruit, all stood up for Poplar Fruit. Even teacher Mo Yang, who had become a household name at the end of the year, posted on Weibo for the first time, supporting Poplar Fruit. He said that he did not believe that Poplar Fruit was such a morally corrupt person. The Poplar Fruit he knew was humble, studious, and a good student who had a sincere heart for learning. The Fast Track hosts also expressed their support for Poplar Fruit in front of the media under teacher his lead. Poplar Fruit is morally corrupt. Do you think that a man who always takes his daughter with him, who carries his daughter's baby bottles and diapers in his backpack, who never eats first before feeding his daughter is morally corrupt? With so many influential people speaking up for Poplar Fruit, even the internet water army could not change the netizens' side. After all, most people were not idiots. It seemed that when night fell, the scales of public opinion were slowly tilting towards Poplar Fruit. However, in a brightly lit hotel room in Yangcheng, Qin Shueishui was excitedly scrolling through Weibo on a few computers and mobile devices. When he saw this trend, not only did he not feel depressed, but he also rubbed his hands together as if the situation was under his control. Do you think this is the end? Qin Shueishui laughed. This is just the beginning. I will show you my, Qin Shueishui's, planning ability. He did this not to deliberately target Poplar Fruit, nor did he do this on a whim to help Li Zichao. Now that there were more and more VIPs on Weibo, making money was not as easy as before. Only by showing the ability to stir up public opinion in the country could he gain more customers. And Poplar Fruit was just an opportunity for him to prove his loyalty. Because of him, the internet had been surging for the past few days. Was Poplar Fruit so isolated and ignorant? Where was he now? Chapter 872. Where was Poplar Fruit? At that moment, he was sitting on the sofa in Fong Beibei's house. Although it was a genuine leather sofa, Poplar Fruit was restless. His face was stiff, and his smile was uglier than his crying face. That's right. Poplar Fruit had met the parents. His child was almost 2 years old, and it was the first time he had met the parents. He was not mentally prepared at all, and he was forced to do something beyond his ability. It was the third day after Fong Beibei gave Poplar Fruit the love ring. During the day, the relationship between Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei was exposed. The paparazzi's photos of Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit were everywhere. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei did not know about it. When they came back from class, one was busy doing homework, while the other was busy writing a thesis. They did not even have time to look at the news online. But Fong Beibei's family knew. The neighbor who had told them about the news of the straight-A couple came to gossip again. At that time, Fong Beibei's parents thought that it was just a rumor, just like the previous news. But this time was different. When they saw the photos online, they could not stay calm anymore. Fang Beibei and Yang Guo held each other's hands as they walked around the campus. A mother knows her daughter best. Fang Beibei's mother could tell at a glance that Fang Beibei had fallen in love. However, what made them feel like a bolt from the blue was that the man Fang Beibei fell in love with was actually a man with a daughter. Although he was not a married man, nor a divorced man, wasn't the fact that he had a child more embarrassing than the previous two? Which parent would want their daughter to be someone else's stepmother? Even before they saw Poplar Fruit's background, they had already sentenced Poplar Fruit to death in their heart. Come back right now. Fong Beibei's father was furious. He immediately called Fong Beibei and scolded her, then ordered her to go home immediately. Fong Beibei was shocked by her father's scolding. Even Poplar Fruit did not know that their relationship had been exposed, and Fong Beibei's parents knew about it before them. After putting down the phone, Fong Beibei ran to Poplar Fruit and hugged him and cried. She mumbled, "What should we do? Uncle, what should we do?" She asked Poplar Fruit, but Poplar Fruit did not know either. Although Poplar Fruit had already guessed that there would be a day when he would face Fong Beibei's family, he had never thought that he would be in such a passive situation. He had not even thought about how to face it, but it had already been placed in front of him. Don't worry. Poplar Fruit could only comfort his girlfriend like this. No matter what. We'll face it together. But my mom is crying. Fong Beibei cried and said, I'm afraid to go home. If I go home, they won't let me out. They won't let me see you again. She was even more afraid that neither of them would be able to get through this hurdle. Wasn't it like this in the past? After a holiday, things were still the same, but people had changed. Fong Beibei was afraid. She was afraid that this would happen again. She was afraid that the pledge of eternal love from the past would become an unforgettable memory. She was afraid that the uncle who loved her and gave in to her would disappear. Poplar Fruit was silent. He hugged Fong Beibei tightly, just like how she hugged him. He wanted to rub her into his body so that they would never be separated in this lifetime. Uncle, why don't we elope? Fong Beibei's eyes were filled with tears. She raised her head and looked helplessly at Poplar Fruit. Idiot. Poplar Fruit patted Fong Beibei's butt, sighed, and said, You're still talking about eloping at a time like this. Poplar Fruit looked at his girlfriend tenderly. He thought for a long time, gritted his teeth, and said, We have to face it no matter what. Baby, don't worry, I'll be with you. Let's go home. Huh? Fong Beibei looked at him blankly. I'll go home with you. I'll walk with you to your parents. I'll tell them personally that I'm sorry, that I love you, and that I want to marry you in the future. Poplar Fruit's voice was gentle, but his tone was firm. But Poplar Fruit didn't know that the Fangs didn't even give him a chance to speak. He drove to the Fangs' courtyard, holding Kiki and gifts in his left hand, and holding Fong Beibei's hand in his right hand, as if his son-in-law had come to visit. He pressed the Fangs' doorbell nervously. But it was the Fangs' parents who opened the door. The Fangs' mother grabbed Fong Beibei and dragged her into the house. The Fangs' father looked at Poplar Fruit cautiously and closed the door without saying anything. He didn't even let Poplar Fruit take a step forward. The door slammed shut, cutting off Poplar Fruit's line of sight to Fong Beibei, but it couldn't cut off Fong Beibei's heart-wrenching cries. It was as if he had heard Kiki's heart-wrenching cries. Poplar Fruit felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. He couldn't help but shout, Baby, don't cry, don't be afraid, I'm at the door, I'll wait for you at the door. Uncle, Auntie, please give me a chance to explain. Fong Beibei's cries were cut off as the door closed, but Poplar Fruit's heart seemed to be connected to Fong Beibei's. He seemed to be able to hear that Fong Beibei was still crying in her home, in her bedroom. Kiki was almost scared to tears by this scene. She hugged her father's neck and pouted her little mouth. She sniffled and choked. Beibei sister was kidnapped. Papa. Woo woo. She wanted her father to rescue Beibei sister, who had been kidnapped by the bad guys, just like the pleasant goat, but her father was indifferent. Poplar Fruit could jump over the wall, which was less than 3 meters tall. Poplar Fruit could easily break the 2 thin wooden doors with a flying kick. However, he couldn't cross the 2 gaps today, so he could only stand at the door anxiously. In the house, Fong Beibei was stopped several times when she tried to rush out. She lay on the bed and cried herself hoarse, crying until the sky turned dark. Mother Fang wanted to persuade her, but she wouldn't listen to anything she said. Poplar Fruit stood at the door and waited. He didn't eat dinner, but went to the car to make 2 bottles of milk for Kiki to drink. He wanted to accompany Fong Beibei, because he knew that the lovely person inside didn't drink a single drop of water and didn't eat a single grain of rice. He won't stand there and wait for you. Just you wait and see. Mother Fang had already left some harsh words. After a while, through the bedroom window, she saw Poplar Fruit get into the car and call out to her daughter proudly, Come and see. Look. He can't take it anymore and wants to leave. However, Fong Beibei ignored her, because she knew that Poplar Fruit would wait for her. He promised. Mother Fang didn't believe it. However, she saw a scene that shocked her. Poplar Fruit called Song Juen over and asked him to drive the car back and bring Kiki to his godmother, Liu Suqin. He couldn't bear to let Kiki suffer with him. However, he stayed behind and stood at the door of Fong Beibei's house, like a sentinel standing guard. When the evening lights were lit, Poplar Fruit was still standing at the door of Fong Beibei's house. It was late at night, and it was already past midnight. He raised his head slightly and looked at the window that was very close to the starry sky. The window was tightly shut, and the curtains were covering it. Even the lights were off. However, Poplar Fruit had a vague feeling that the girl he loved the most was also looking at him from that window. Chapter 873. Mother Fang was by her daughter's side. She nagged her the whole night, telling her that there were many men in the world, and she shouldn't ruin her reputation for one man. She repeated this over and over again. Fong Beibei argued, saying, "It's not what you think. We're truly in love. Even if he has a daughter, I'm willing to take care of the child with him." However, Fang Beibei's mother refused to budge. She could only cry under the blanket. Fong Beibei, who was also worried about her boyfriend, rushed to the window several times to open the curtains. However, she was repeatedly pushed back by her strong father. After arguing and crying the whole night, Fong Beibei fell into a deep sleep. Fang Beibei's mother was still worried, so she stayed in the room and hugged the blanket as she took a nap on the small sofa. At night, Fong Beibei stood up quietly. In order not to wake up her wary mother, she only opened a small gap in the curtains and looked out. Suddenly, her dried tears burst out again. She almost choked with sobs. Her right hand covered her mouth tightly to stop herself from crying. Unlike before, her tears this time were tears of happiness. Through the window, through the dim streetlights not far away, Fang Beibei saw the man she had yearned for day and night standing in front of her door like a pine tree that had guarded Mount Huangshan for thousands of years. His back was straight, and he would never leave her. Poplar Fruit seemed to have seen her too. He raised his head. Although she couldn't see clearly, Fong Beibei could feel her boyfriend's love and care through space. Poplar Fruit raised his hand and placed it on her cheek. His head tilted slightly. Then he patted his chest and returned to his original standing position. He gazed at her with a warm smile. Fong Beibei understood the meaning of Poplar Fruit's simple gesture. He was saying, "Go to sleep. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." Fong Beibei's tears flowed down. She still covered her mouth, but her face was filled with happiness. Even though she was extremely reluctant, Fang Beibei still obeyed her boyfriend's instructions in the end. She obediently returned to her bed and fell into a deep sleep with the lingering charm of happiness. After a long time, a soft sigh came from the sofa. Mother Fang opened her eyes and stared blankly at the ceiling. She had woken up when Fong Beibei started sobbing for the first time. She had seen Fong Beibei's every move. Mrs. Fang originally thought that Fong Beibei had gone astray because of a moment of willfulness. She was just like her when she was in junior high school. After some education, she would change obediently. She had been the representative of an obedient girl since she was a child. But now, it seemed that her daughter had really fallen into the trap, and it wouldn't be so easy to solve. The sun rose from the east. The first ray of sunlight pierced through the sky and shone on Poplar Fruit's wet hair. A new day had quietly arrived. Poplar Fruit had been standing in front of Fong Beibei's house for the entire night. His legs hadn't even moved from their sockets. Even Poplar Fruit's legs felt sore and numb. It was November in Yangcheng. Although it was still hot during the day, the temperature dropped quickly at night. Fong Beibei's house was close to the bay, so the night was chilly. It was as if winter had arrived. Poplar Fruit was only wearing a thin shirt. If it were someone else, they would probably be on an 4-drip at the hospital. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit had internal energy to protect his body. Even though he was standing, he was still using his internal energy to drive away the cold and fatigue in his body. Therefore, from the outside, his back was straight and he looked as if he was still in high spirits. Although he had internal energy and only needed 3 hours of sleep a day, Poplar Fruit was still immortal. He hadn't slept for a day and a night, so his physical and mental fatigue was slowly creeping up on him. It was deeply hidden in his deep eyes. Creak. The Fang family's tightly shut door opened. Father Fang opened the door and walked out with one hand behind his back. He raised his head and saw Yangguo standing at the door. His body trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but reveal shock in his eyes. "Uncle, cough cough, good morning." Poplar Fruit hurriedly lowered his head and greeted him respectfully. His voice was a little hoarse because he hadn't had a drink the entire night. He even coughed dryly. Fang Qiu's father took a deep breath and slammed the door shut. He waved his hand and said stiffly, all right, don't stand here and embarrass yourself. Our house doesn't welcome you." After that, Father Fang didn't wait for Poplar Fruit's explanation and left with a flick of his sleeve. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly, but he wasn't discouraged. He continued to stand at the door. Not long after, Poplar Fruit saw Father Fang come back with a bag of steamed buns and soy milk. He walked up to him eagerly, wanting to help. However, Father Fang waved his hand dismissively and chased him away. "Go away, don't get in my way." The door opened and closed. Poplar Fruit continued to stand. His stomach couldn't help but growl. Poplar Fruit's appetite was far greater than that of ordinary people. This was related to his internal energy. Now, he had already skipped 2 meals in a row and hadn't even drunk a sip of water. It would be strange if he wasn't hungry. Meanwhile, in Fong Beibei's bedroom, Fong Beibei sadly sat on the edge of the bed, hugging a pillow. She turned her head away, unwilling to respond to her mother, who was trying to persuade her. Mother Fang's heart ached and she had a headache. Her daughter hadn't eaten or drunk for the whole night, and her small face had become much more haggard. However, no matter how much she tried to persuade her, Fong Beibei kept turning her head away. Even when she put a straw in the soy milk and put it under her lips, she didn't open her mouth. "Beibei." Mother Fang sighed and said, "Why do you have to be so stubborn with your parents? Aren't your parents doing this for your own good? If you don't eat or drink, won't you be the one hurting yourself in the end?" Fong Beibei turned her head away and said softly in a hoarse voice, "If he doesn't eat, I'll eat with him." "How can that be? He's just doing it for you to see." Mother Fang laughed and lied. "I got up last night to see him. I don't even know where he went to sleep last night. He only came back this morning to put on an act. When your dad went to buy breakfast, he even saw him squatting there and eating secretly." Father Fang used to be a primary school teacher and was an upright person. When he heard Mother Fang lying through her teeth, he couldn't bear to look at her, but he didn't say anything. "You're lying." Fong Beibei turned her head. Although her eyes were red and swollen, they were sharp as she looked at her parents. She shouted sternly, "He's just standing there. He's always been there. Do you know anything about him? Do you know how good he is to me? You only know how to oppose. Fang Beibei shouted herself hoarse. "What do you mean we don't know anything about him?" Mother Fang took her phone and slammed it on the table. She pointed at it and said, "Look at the news that your aunt sent me. Look at what kind of person he is. He plays with girls like you who don't know anything." Fong Beibei picked up the phone and glanced at it. She smiled coldly and threw it away. She hugged the pillow and returned to her bed. "You believe such gossip? If he's that kind of person, do you think I can't tell? Do you think that I still don't know anything?" Chapter 874. If he's a good person, why are there so many people scolding him online? Mother Fang retorted. "Old Fang, what's that saying again? Wind from an empty cave may not be without cause," Father Fang said in a low voice. "Yes, that's right. People wouldn't spread rumors about him for no reason. He's definitely not a good person. That's why people leaked information about him," Mother Fang said angrily. "Ahem." Father Fang coughed twice. He wasn't as extreme as Mother Fang. When he saw the rumors online, he felt that there was a lot of exaggeration. "What do you know? Poplar Fruit isn't that kind of person. Why don't you give him a chance and let him show you? Why do you keep listening to what others say? Can't you believe me?" Fong Beibei rarely spoke loudly to her parents. Today, her eyes were red as she shouted. "Old Fang, you talk to him too," Mother Fang said unhappily as she pushed Father Fang, who had been quiet all this time. "Ahem." Father Fang was forced to stand up. He sighed and said, "It doesn't matter if he's a good person or a bad person. When he came yesterday, he brought a child with him, right? This can't be a rumor, right?" "That's right. A man who already has a child came looking for a virgin like you. What do you think he's up to?" Mother Fang said angrily. "What could he be up to? He likes me, and I like him too. Fong Beibei cried. So what if he has a daughter? I'm willing to marry him and help him take care of his daughter. Father Fang said in a low voice, that's enough. Even if you don't think it's embarrassing, our Fang family does. Mother Fang interrupted, that's right. Do you know how many times your aunts and uncles have called us yesterday? Do you know how worried we were when people said that you did that on the internet? I already told you that he's standing at the door. You can ask him yourself and see for yourself if he's as bad as the internet says. Fong Beibei shouted. She felt like she was going crazy. Tell him to give up. Father Fang slammed the table and said, our Fang family, no matter how weak we are, we will not let our daughter marry a married man. He's never been married. Fong Beibei shouted herself hoarse. After shouting, she began to cry again. Even if he isn't married, he has a daughter. This is definitely not allowed. Father Fang said resolutely, we worked so hard to raise you. We can't let you be the stepmother of someone else's child. That's right. Beibei, you're still young. You don't know anything. Mother Fang said earnestly, after a few years, when you grow up, you will find that there will be many, many good men for you to choose from. No, I've decided on him. Fong Beibei shook her head. She was very tired from crying, and she was so hungry that she was dizzy. She no longer had the strength to argue. The sun was high in the sky, and lunch was over. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei still did not eat. Poplar Fruit stood outside. He had not moved from the ground. Under the scorching sun, his face was slightly pale and he was sweating profusely. Although his body was getting more and more tired, Poplar Fruit's eyes still maintained a determined look. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Song Jiwen and Chen Anlan drove Kiki to visit her father. Although the little girl was under the care of Grandma Liu Suqin and was quite obedient, she woke up early this morning and kept asking for her father. Papa. As soon as they got out of the car, Kiki happily ran toward her father. However, she ran too fast and did not pay attention to the uneven ground. The tip of her foot tripped on the ground, and she lost her balance and was about to fall to the ground. Poplar Fruit's body reacted quickly. In a flash, he held Kiki's body with both hands. Kiki was almost touching the ground when she was pulled back into her father's arms. Ouch! Kiki fell. Kiki giggled, squeezed into her father's arms, and said embarrassedly, the sun is so hot. Go back with Uncle Mosquito, Poplar Fruit said in a hoarse voice. You're talking about us. Look at you, standing under the sun. What are you doing? Song Jiwen came over and held an umbrella for Poplar Fruit. Chen Anlan also held an umbrella to help him and himself to block the hot sun. Your lips are dry and cracked. Chen Anlan said with a frown, Brother Yang, I'll get you a bottle of water. I'm fine. You don't have to give it to me. If I want to drink, I'll go back and buy it myself. Poplar Fruit forced a smile and said, you go back first. No, Kiki wants to be with Papa. Kiki shook her head and said, Kiki. Poplar Fruit looked at Kiki. Although his voice was not loud, he said unquestionably, you have to be obedient and go back with Uncle Mosquito. Papa wants to stay here until we pick up Sister Beibei. Then we can go home together. Song Jiwen also opened his hand, waved to Kiki, and said, let's go, Kiki. If we stay here, we will only hinder your papa. Kiki hesitated for a long time. She knew her papa's determination. She pursed her little mouth and finally did not cry. She obediently let Uncle Mosquito carry her away. Goodbye, Papa. Kiki obediently waved to her papa, then reluctantly got into the car and left. After the car left, Poplar Fruit raised his head and looked at the Fong Beibei's house. Although he could not see Fong Beibei now, Poplar Fruit was somewhat anxious. He knew his own body. Although he was hungry and his stomach was growling, in reality, he would be fine even if he held on for another 2 days. But Fong Beibei could not. Baby, you should eat something first. Don't starve your body. Poplar Fruit frowned slightly and thought worriedly. However, just as he thought, Fong Beibei was still starving. Her lips were dry, her face was pale, and she could not speak. She could only hug the pillow and cry until her tears dried up. Mother Fang anxiously walked up and down the stairs. Father Fang held a newspaper and read it for a long time, but did not turn the page. He could not go on like this. If this went on, before she changed her mind, he was afraid that he would not be able to live. Finally, with a creak, the iron gate of the Fang family's house was opened. Father Fang's face darkened. He looked at Poplar Fruit, who was standing there, and was silent for a long time before he said, "Come in and talk." Poplar Fruit licked his lips, but even his tongue was dry. He took a deep breath, followed behind Father Fang, and walked into the house that he had been waiting for an entire day and night. Before he entered the house, Mother Fang hurriedly walked out. She first glared at Poplar Fruit, then said angrily, You hurry up and persuade her to eat something. She has already fainted twice." The situation seemed to be very urgent. The Fang family did not want to let the culprit enter the house, but they had to take a step back temporarily. Their daughter's health was more important. When Poplar Fruit heard that Fong Beibei had fainted, his body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. Without waiting for Mother Fang to lead the way, he even forgot to take off his shoes. He dodged Mother Fang and rushed into the house in a panic. He rushed upstairs to the approximate location of Fong Beibei's room that he had sensed last night. Chapter 875. Shoes. Mother Fang shouted anxiously when she saw Poplar Fruit leaving a footprint on the wooden floor. Father Fang pulled her back and said in a deep voice, all right. Look at the situation now. Why are you still complaining about shoes?" Poplar Fruit rushed up the stairs. There were several rooms on the second floor. He pushed open one of the doors and saw Fong Beibei hugging a pillow as she lay on the bed. He didn't notice her and didn't even glance at the other decorations in the room. Poplar Fruit only had eyes for the girl who was wearing yesterday's clothes and had messy hair. The girl who didn't wake up even when his footsteps were so loud. "Baby." Poplar Fruit walked over and gently carried Fong Beibei. He caressed her haggard face and gently called out to her. Fong Beibei only fainted from hunger and her mental state was a little weak, but she was fine. She slowly opened her eyes when Poplar Fruit called out to her. "Uncle." Fong Beibei raised her hand and her eyes flashed with surprise. Her voice was even worse than Yang Guo's. From last night until today, she didn't know how many times she had screamed at her parents. She screamed until her voice was hoarse. Coupled with the fact that she hadn't drunk any water, her voice sounded like sandpaper rubbing against each other. Don't talk first. Poplar Fruit raised his head in a panic and found a glass of water that Mother Fang had poured for him on the table. He touched it and found that it was a little cold. He picked up the kettle and poured some hot water to rinse it before returning to Fong Beibei's side. Fong Beibei recovered some strength and supported herself. She leaned into Poplar Fruit's broad embrace. "Come, open your mouth and drink some water. Be good." Poplar Fruit held the glass of water to Fong Beibei's dry lips as if he was coaxing a child. Fong Beibei bit the edge of the glass and drank mouthful after mouthful of water as Poplar Fruit gently lifted her hand. Poplar Fruit was slightly happy when he saw the clear water leave a mark on Fong Beibei's lips. Fong Beibei's breathing seemed to be less chaotic and weak because of the water. Probably because she was too thirsty, Fong Beibei drank the water in a hurry. Poplar Fruit didn't dare to raise his hand too quickly for fear that she would choke. But seeing her drink the water, Poplar Fruit couldn't help licking his tongue. Fong Beibei's eyes gradually regained some vigor. She suddenly stopped. She held the glass of water and gently pushed it in Poplar Fruit's direction. She said in a hoarse voice, "You drink too." Poplar Fruit didn't refuse because he knew that if he didn't drink it, with the baby's stubbornness, she would never finish the glass of water by herself. Poplar Fruit raised his hand and drank a small mouthful. The precious water slid down his throat. Poplar Fruit felt like a traveler in the desert who encountered an oasis. His life was about to explode. "Okay. I drank it, hurry and drink more." Poplar Fruit resisted the urge to drink 2 more mouthfuls and continued to feed Fong Beibei water. This scene was witnessed by Father and Mother Fang, who were standing at the door. At this moment, their emotions were so complicated that it was as if they were in a mess. Ahem. Seeing that Fong Beibei finished the glass of water, Poplar Fruit was still hugging her. He held her face and stroked her red and swollen eyes. The two of them were so sweet and tender that it was as if they were the only ones left in the world. Father Fang couldn't help but cough twice. "Uncle." Poplar Fruit nervously held the glass of water and turned his head. He wanted to stand up, but he was afraid that Fong Beibei would lose her support and fall back onto the bed. Fong Beibei was the same. She looked up at her father nervously, but her arms were tightly hugging Poplar Fruit, as if she was worried that her father would do something to Poplar Fruit. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Father Fang closed his eyes, sighed, and said, "Okay, old woman, leave the food here. After you guys finish eating, come down to the living room to talk." Mother Fang put down the plate of food heavily, snorted, and followed Father Fang downstairs. After Father and Mother Fang left, Poplar Fruit carried Fong Beibei, who was as light as a feather, from the bed. He was about to carry her to the desk, but Fong Beibei clung onto Poplar Fruit's neck and refused to sit down. In the end, she clung onto Poplar Fruit and asked him to sit on the chair first. Then, she sat on Poplar Fruit's lap and clung onto it. Fong Beibei saw a glimmer of hope when her father relented. However, she was still worried that her parents would go back on their word. She clung onto Poplar Fruit not because she wanted to act like a spoiled child like my daughter, but because she was worried that this was a dream. When she woke up from this dream, Poplar Fruit would disappear. "You eat too." Under Poplar Fruit's gentle feeding, Fong Beibei ate a mouthful of rice. Then, she looked lovingly into Poplar Fruit's eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Okay, I'll eat too. I'll drink a glass of water first." Poplar Fruit smiled. He poured another glass of water and gulped it down. He was also thirsty. One glass wasn't enough, so he drank another glass. "Uncle." Fong Beibei reached out her hand and gently stroked Poplar Fruit's peeling lips. Her voice was choked with sobs. "Okay, don't cry. Aren't I already by your side?" Poplar Fruit smiled gently. "But I won't allow you to starve yourself like this in the future. I'm in good health, so it's okay for me to starve a little longer. Why are you so silly, learning from me? Do you know that when you faint from hunger, I'm actually the one who is the saddest?" Poplar Fruit held Fong Beibei's small hand, placed it on his chest, and affectionately said, "If you can persevere, then I can persevere." Fong Beibei leaned into Poplar Fruit's embrace, nodded vigorously and murmured, "Come, let's continue eating." Poplar Fruit stirred the rice, cut the meat into pieces, scooped up a small spoonful, and delivered it to Fong Beibei. She obediently opened her mouth and ate a mouthful. "It's my turn." Fong Beibei hugged Poplar Fruit's waist with her right hand, and used her left hand to snatch the spoon from Poplar Fruit's hand. She clumsily scooped up a spoonful of rice mixed with soup, and shakily delivered it to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit was worried that she wouldn't be able to hold it properly, so he hurriedly took the spoon in his mouth and ate the rice. He smiled and said, "It's delicious." Just like that, the two of them didn't seem to care that they were in Fong Beibei's house at all. They fed each other as if no one was around. Luckily, Father and Mother Fang went downstairs and didn't see this scene. They finally finished eating. Poplar Fruit had to follow Father Fang's request and go downstairs to answer a question. "I'll go too." Fong Beibei's voice hadn't fully recovered, and every word she said took a lot of effort. She hugged Poplar Fruit's arm and said bravely. Poplar Fruit gently rubbed Fong Beibei's neat bangs, smiled, and said, "No, if you go down, they won't be happy. I'll have to face Uncle and Auntie sooner or later, so this time, let me go down alone, let me persuade them." But Fang Beibei was very anxious. She spoke for a while, but no sound came out. "It's okay. Trust me." Poplar Fruit patted her hand, and said with a smile. In the end, he reminded her, "Drink more water, rest, and wait for my good news." Chapter 876. The Fangs were half of the countryside. Shonan district was far from the city center, far from the economic prosperity. It was even less important than Buda City to Yangcheng. However, in recent years, the development of this district had caught up. There were rumors that Shonan district would become Yangcheng's Dongpu New district, leading Yangcheng to a new era of development. Of course, this was all just an illusion. It had nothing to do with the fangs and poplar fruit. Before coming down, Poplar Fruit confidently told Fong Beibei that he could do it. However, when he really came down, he sat nervously on the sofa in the living room. Small beads of sweat formed on his forehead. It seemed that Father and Mother Fang wanted to give Poplar Fruit a heads up. When Poplar Fruit came down, Father Fang told him to wait in the living room. Then, Father Fang and Mother Fang sat in the dining room and ate slowly. They didn't say a word, giving Poplar Fruit a huge pressure from afar. So this is the place where Bao Bao grew up. Yang Guo secretly looked around the Fang family's small bungalow. Fong Beibei had talked to him about their childhood. At the time, this was an inherited ancestral home. It was very big, a few hundred square meters house with a rather large courtyard. At the very least, it wouldn't be a problem to have a vegetable garden and 2 parking spaces for private cars. However, before Fong Beibei was in junior high school, her family was quite poor. Her father was a primary school math teacher and her mother was an accountant in town. Other than their daily expenses, they didn't have any extra money to build a house for them. When Fong Beibei was in junior high school, her father and mother went into the sea and opened a stationery shop in front of a nearby middle school. Later, the stationery shop wasn't very popular, so they changed it to a trendy milk tea shop. Then, they changed it to a board game bar with catering and entertainment. It had to be said that Father Fang had a good eye for business. His board game bar eventually grew from 1 room to 2. Until now, Father Fang and Mother Fang were still hiring people to manage it and leaving it to others. When Father Fang opened the stationery store, he had saved up a sum of money and renovated the small rented house into a beautiful 3-story bungalow. However, it could be seen that the Fang family was still rather thrifty. Fang Beibei's personality was also inherited from them. There were no gorgeous decorations or expensive furniture in the house. It was very simple and down-to-earth decoration and matching. It looked very warm and had the taste of home. "Where are you from?" Father Fang walked over unsteadily with a cup in his hand. His sudden question broke the silence in the room that made people panic. "Hello, Uncle." Poplar Fruit hurriedly stood up and bowed. He honestly told them the address of his hometown, the exact village, and the number. "Oh, does that mean you're from the countryside?" Father Fang raised his eyebrows and asked casually. Just now, he had been secretly observing Poplar Fruit's every move. When he saw that Poplar Fruit did not do anything out of the ordinary, he thought that Poplar Fruit was from the city. "Yes, my family is from the countryside. But I don't have a household register anymore. After I went to university, I moved my household register to Yangcheng." Poplar Fruit replied nervously. "Have a seat." Father Fang waved his hand and gestured for Poplar Fruit to sit down. His impression of Poplar Fruit was actually quite good. The young man was tall and handsome, and he cleaned himself up well. Furthermore, he stood outside without eating, drinking, or resting for an entire day and night. This kind of perseverance was not something that an ordinary child could have. However, when he thought of how Fang Zhangji had a child and still came to provoke his daughter, Father Fang felt as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat. "That child from yesterday is yours?" Father Fang asked coldly. "Yes." Poplar Fruit replied without hesitation. "But Uncle, please don't worry. We have a very good relationship. The baby, Beibei really likes my daughter, and I won't let Beibei suffer, won't let her suffer. Let me tell you, young man, you're young and don't know any better. I can forgive you, but do you know what it means to suffer?" Mother Fang rushed out and pointed at Poplar Fruit as she scolded. "You want her to be the stepmother of your child. That's letting her suffer." Poplar Fruit was speechless. He didn't know how to reply. Poplar Fruit hearing a series of footsteps, Poplar Fruit turned around to see Fong Beibei rushing down the stairs. She didn't listen to her mother's instructions to rest, but had been hiding on the stairs to eavesdrop. When she heard her mother making things difficult for Poplar Fruit, she hurriedly rushed down. She didn't give her parents time to react as she hugged Poplar Fruit's arm. She used all her strength to support her hoarse voice and said, "I don't feel wronged." Poplar Fruit's heart ached as he pressed down on her hand and helped her sit down. He reached out his left hand and condensed a wave of internal energy to massage Fong Beibei's throat. He said, Why did you come down? Didn't I tell you to rest? Don't talk. When the time comes, your throat will be damaged from all the shouting. Fong Beibei once again felt the magic of poplar fruit. Under his massage, her throat was originally a little sore, but now she felt the warmth of a sour mama. She didn't care that her parents were sitting in front of her and smiled sweetly at poplar fruit. Come over here. Don't you feel embarrassed? Mother Fang finally couldn't stand it anymore. She reached out to grab Fong Beibei and wanted to pull her over to sit on the sofa opposite her. Just now, her daughter had fainted. In order to let her daughter eat something, no matter how unhappy she was, she could only endure it. But now, how could she watch someone touch and rub her daughter? It's okay, it's okay. Poplar fruit helped to calm Fong Beibei, who wanted to struggle. Listen to your mother. How old are you this year? Father Fang asked in a deep voice. His words made Mother Fang, who still wanted to make things difficult, swallow her words. Just 25 years old. Poplar fruit replied with a smile. 25 years old. Father Fang frowned. That wasn't very old. He seemed to have misunderstood before. He felt that poplar fruit was mature and calm, which was different from his age. Moreover, with the fact that poplar fruit had a daughter, Father Fang thought that poplar fruit was at least a youth above 30 years old. Then, what are you doing for a living now? Father Fang asked. Before he could think of a way to separate poplar fruit and Fong Beibei, he had to have a detailed understanding of poplar fruit. Didn't his daughter say that she wouldn't give him a chance to explain himself face to face? Father Fang was confident that during his interrogation, poplar fruit's true colors would be revealed. Speaking of which, they really didn't look into poplar fruit's background in detail. The most they knew was the false rumors sent by their relatives. I don't have a stable job at the moment because I'm still a student. Poplar fruit scratched his head and said to Father Fang, I'm currently studying at Higoshiyama University. I'm classmates with Bao, Beibei. Poplar fruit had always been very honest. Chapter 877. Student. Father Fang raised his eyebrows. He thought poplar fruit was talking about a model or something. He still remembered the screenshot that their relative had sent them on Weibo. It seemed like the introduction of poplar fruit was that he was a famous model. Since he was a student, there was more to talk about. First, Mother Fang opened her mouth and said, Student? How did your teachers teach you? Is going to school to date? Don't you know that puppy love is dangerous? I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Beibei. She's still young and doesn't know anything. You're playing with her feelings. Have you ever considered the harm you're doing to her? Auntie, puppy love refers to those before the age of 18. Poplar fruit laughed bitterly and blurted out. He then looked at Fong Beibei worriedly, afraid that she would think too much. Luckily, Fong Beibei's expression didn't change. She just looked at her mother angrily. Also, Beibei and I are mature adults now. We love each other. It's not a blind adolescent impulse. Poplar fruit explained. I like Beibei because I want to marry her in the future. I'm not playing with her feelings like you said. I will give her happiness. What do you have to give her happiness? Father Fang slammed the glass of water on the table, startling Fong Beibei. His tone didn't change as he said in a low voice, You're just a university student from the countryside. You still have to raise your daughter. What do you have to give Beibei happiness? Don't tell me you're a model. Father Fang slammed the table and said sternly, Don't use this kind of job as an excuse. Do you think I don't know? This industry is the dirtiest and most unstable. What do you have to give my daughter happiness? Father Fang's 3 consecutive questions had completely stirred up their anger. Mother Fang raised her head and stared at poplar fruit as if she wanted to see poplar fruit speechless. Uncle, you misunderstood. Poplar fruit explained, I was just helping a friend before. I didn't plan to make a living as a model. Don't worry, even if I don't become a model, I can still earn enough money for us to not have to worry about food and clothes. Hihi, I know. Graduate students get a few hundred-yuan allowance. You're still in school, and you haven't even gone out into society. You think that money is enough for you to eat. Father Fang sneered. You're too naive. Do you think this is happiness? When you enter society, you won't even have enough money to rent a house. Is this what happiness is? You want to take our daughter away without a house or a car? Dream on. Mother Fang said with a look of disdain, I know what a young man like you is thinking. You see that our Bebe's family is doing well, and that she's an only child, so you want to covet our family's property and assets. Mother Fang laughed coldly and said, that's right. When we're old, all of our assets will be handed over to Bebe. We're also willing to help our son-in-law when he's in trouble. However, a young man like you who wants to reap without sowing can forget about stepping into our Fang family's doors. Mother Fang's words came out like a machine gun, and she didn't give Poplar Fruit a chance to explain. The more Fong Bebe listened, the weirder her expression became. She tugged at her mother's arm. Why are you tugging at me? Fong Bebe. Aren't you siding with outsiders more and more now? Mother Fang was furious. She pointed at Fong Bebe and scolded her. Look at you. When you were in junior high and high school, your father and I were watching over you, and you were so obedient. You even got into Higoshiyama University in advance. But in your first year in university, your father and I let you go and try your luck. What have you become now? You even brought back a man who lives off a woman, and you even said that you're willing to be someone else's stepmother. You're only willing to do this because you want to anger me to death, right? Mother Fang scolded and cried emotionally. She wiped her tears and said, yes, I used to hit you and scold you because of your puppy love, and I even forced you to separate. But you have to understand that I did this for your own good. You brought him back just to spite me, right? But do you know that you're harming yourself by doing this? As she spoke, Fong Bebe couldn't help but wipe her tears. Poplar Fruit quickly stood up and took out tissues from the tissue box beside him. He handed them to Fong Bebe and her mother. Mother Fang subconsciously took the tissues and wiped her eyes. When she saw that it was Poplar Fruit, her mood immediately changed. She scolded him harshly, get out of here. I don't need you to stand here hypocritically. Get out. Get out of our house. Mom, can you let me say something? Fong Bebe held on to Mother Fang, who was about to explode, and said in a hoarse voice. She had just let Poplar Fruit relieve the pain in her throat. Now that she spoke forcefully, she felt like her throat was being torn. Mother Fang still cared about her daughter. She quickly pulled Fong Bebe to sit down and said, don't talk, don't talk. Look at your voice. Auntie, let me do it. Poplar Fruit was also anxious. He waved at Fong Bebe and said, baby, come over here. Mother Fang reached out to pull her, but Fong Bebe ran over to Poplar Fruit's side and sat down. She snuggled into Poplar Fruit's arms and let him gently massage her throat. You. Mother Fang's eyes widened. She was about to explode in anger. Fong Bebe's actions in front of them were clearly telling them that she was now on Poplar Fruit's side. Even if she ran away with him, it was not impossible. Fong Bebe felt a little better. When she wanted to move, Poplar Fruit knew what she was going to do. He pressed a finger on her lips and said with a smile, don't talk. I know you want to help me explain. I'll do it myself. Poplar Fruit felt that Fong Bebe had calmed down a little. He couldn't help his girlfriend fully recover in such a short time, so he helped Fong Bebe up. If they continued to stick together like this, Mother Fang and Father Fang would both explode, let alone Mother Fang. He got up and poured a cup of warm water for Fong Bebe as if it was his own house. He even used his hand to feel the temperature of the water and handed it to Fong Bebe. Then, he sat up straight and said to Mother Fang, Uncle, Auntie, you really misunderstood me. Although I'm still a student and don't have a stable job, I still have an income. Poplar Fruit felt that it was inappropriate to praise himself. He tried to be humble and said, I'm a language major. Usually, I have some desk jobs like translation, so I can earn money at home. I also translate some books for the publishing house, which is also paid. Also, you mentioned the house and car just now, Poplar Fruit said, a little embarrassed. Actually, I already have a car. As for the house. Chapter 878. As for the house, I haven't gotten the key yet, so I'm still living in a rented apartment. Poplar Fruit said sincerely. But, Uncle, Auntie, don't worry. I'll be able to hand over the house by February next year, after the spring festival. I'll be paying in full, and I'll be able to move in after the renovation and furniture. Poplar Fruit smiled. Plus, the house is close to our school. It'll only take 10 minutes to drive there. It'll be very convenient for the baby, and me to go to school. Poplar Fruit was used to calling her baby, so he couldn't change the way he addressed her. It sounded very awkward to Mr. and Mrs. Fang. Do you think that we don't have the money to buy her a house? Mr. Fang was upset. Are you showing off in front of us with a house? Exactly. Do you think that we're such tacky parents? Mrs. Fang seemed to have forgotten that Fang Zhao was the one who had said that he wanted a house and a car. She said righteously, "You want us to sell our daughter off with a house? Let me tell you, in your dreams." Fong Beibei was a little agitated. She opened her mouth to speak, but Poplar Fruit squeezed her hand and didn't let her speak. Uncle, Auntie, please forgive me. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and said, "Maybe I was exaggerating just now, but please understand that I wasn't trying to show off. I just wanted to prove to you that I have the ability to give Beibei happiness." Don't talk about happiness. It's impossible for you to have a child, Mrs. Fang said angrily. There was no point in continuing the conversation. After talking for a long time, they were back to square one. Mr. Fang coughed twice and asked, "Tell us, what's the story about you playing with a female student's feelings?" Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and said, "Uncle, you don't know. I don't know who's targeting me, but whenever they have the chance, they'll throw dirty water at me. In September, I helped a friend in Bali as a guest model. That's what happened, and now they're popping up again. However, you can rest assured that these rumors are all fabricated by them." Poplar Fruit said resolutely as he continued, "When I teach my students, Beibei would sometimes visit me. She also knows that I'm a serious person." Although it felt weird to say that he was serious, Poplar Fruit still spoke the truth. Fong Beibei nodded. Although she usually liked to call Poplar Fruit uncle or weird uncle, in fact, it was just some fun between couples. "Class, aren't you a graduate student?" Father Fang asked in confusion. "Yes." Poplar Fruit nodded and said, "But I'm still working part-time as a teaching assistant. Because I might be teaching 1 or 2 public elective courses next semester, I've been helping out this semester." Father Fang was a little confused. He felt that Poplar Fruit's words were a little different from his understanding of the world. He asked in confusion, "You're about to graduate? Why can you start working as a teaching assistant?" "I'm in my first year of graduate school." Yang Guo explained, "I'm different from the other students. I know a few more languages than them. The school hopes that I can experiment through the public elective course to see if it's feasible. If the results are good, there might be an additional language major in the future." "So, you're going to be a teacher in the future?" Father Fang and Poplar Fruit started to talk about this topic. He was a teacher. Although he was only an elementary school teacher, Father Fang's education was not simple. He graduated from Shuremu University in the 1980s with a bachelor's degree in mathematics. An undergraduate student in that era was no less valuable than a graduate student today. What's more, he was from Shuremu University. If Fang Beibei hadn't been so good at her subjects and held her back in English, her parents would have still wanted her to get into Shuremu University. "It should be." Poplar Fruit nodded and smiled. "Beibei said that her dream is to study for a master's degree and then stay in the school. It's good that we can take care of each other." Fong Beibei raised her head and looked at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit also lowered his head and smiled at her. Poplar Fruit smiled brightly. His smile was very gentle, as if there was a scholarly aura gently blooming on his face. Some people could not feel it, but Father Fang, who used to be a teacher, could feel it. He suddenly realized that he was very satisfied with the big boy in front of him. He was highly educated, good-looking, good to his daughter, and had the same interests as her. Mother Fang felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. It was as if her father had been deceived by this guy. Mother Fang knew that Father Fang had once said that he hoped that his daughter could find a teacher as her husband in the future. She said unhappily, "All right, he hasn't graduated yet. He can't be a teacher yet. Well, since you're here, I'll give you a chance. Tell me, what's going on with your child? Mother Fang asked. She thought to herself, tell me, make up a story. You're so young, but you have such a big child. You must have done a lot of bad things in the past. Bebe doesn't know, but people like us who have been through this before will definitely be able to expose you. To be honest, Poplar Fruit was not very willing to talk about this matter. A few days ago, he had only said a few words to the news agency. Now, sitting in front of Fong Bebe's parents, he could not help but force himself to remember this painful past. 10 minutes passed, that's what happened. When I rushed to the hospital, she was already dying. She passed the child to me and left. Poplar Fruit sighed. Fong Bebe was sad to hear this. She looked at Poplar Fruit with tears in her eyes. Mother Fang wanted to find fault with Poplar Fruit, but after listening for a long time, she could only hear the truth. She could not tell that Poplar Fruit was lying in any way. However, Mother Fang was still a little unconvinced. She said, how would we know that you didn't make up all these things? How could I? Poplar Fruit frowned. He was a little angry, but he suppressed it. He said calmly, how could I make up something like this? Kiki's mother left behind a few diaries and some photos. I kept them and was going to show them to Kiki when she grew up. Of course, Bebe saw them before. Fong Bebe nodded and held Poplar Fruit's hand. She seemed to want to comfort Poplar Fruit. All right, stop arguing about this, Father Fang said unhappily as he pulled Mother Fang aside. He's already gone. Why are you still talking about this? From the moment Poplar Fruit entered the house until now, Father Fang had seen everything that he had said and done. To be honest, if he put aside Kiki, who was his Achilles heel, he had a good impression of Poplar Fruit. Not only did he have a good impression of him, but he also felt that Poplar Fruit was the perfect candidate for his son-in-law. It wasn't that Father Fang had completely changed sides. The fact that Poplar Fruit had a daughter still made him feel very conflicted. However, he was no longer one-sided. He gradually started to look at the problem of Poplar Fruit and his daughter from an objective point of view. Chapter 879. As soon as Father Fang said this, Mother Fang immediately glared at him with a gaze as sharp as a knife, as if she was looking at a traitor who had switched sides halfway. However, even if Father Fang said that, Mother Fang didn't change her first impression of Poplar Fruit, a lecher who played with her daughter's feeling. In the end, it was Chichi's problem that was too difficult for her to accept. It caused her to lose even her most basic judgment, and judge a person based solely on her own imagination. You're 25 this year? Mother Fang squinted her eyes and pretended to be fierce. Her expression was similar to Fong Bebe's. Fong Bebe probably learned it from her mother. She liked to squint her eyes when she was fierce. However, they didn't know that this wasn't fierce at all. It couldn't even scare a child. Yes, Poplar Fruit quickly replied. Then, before Bebe, you must have had a girlfriend before, right? Mother Fang asked, one step at a time. I had a girlfriend, Poplar Fruit nodded and said honestly. Mom. Fong Bebe frowned and couldn't help but call out. Mother Fang was happy. She thought, you're right to be anxious. Don't worry, let Mom help you interrogate this man. You'll see his true colors. Mother Fang then asked Poplar Fruit, only one? Then why did you break up? How long were you together? 5 years, 4 years in university, and 1 year after graduation. Poplar Fruit was very honest. He scratched his head and said embarrassedly, the reason we broke up was because of Kiki. She had a more realistic view of marriage and couldn't accept Kiki. She wanted to leave, so we broke up in the end. Did you see that? Did you see that? Who can accept a child? Mother Fang slapped the sofa's armrest and pointed at Poplar Fruit with her sharp teeth. She wasn't a bad person, but her mouth was a little hard to accept. Poplar Fruit felt very uncomfortable with Mother Fang's words. He kept silent and didn't know how to answer. Fong Bebe coughed and said hoarsely, Mom, how can you say that about Poplar Fruit? It wasn't easy for him to raise a child alone. Yes, it wasn't easy. Mother Fang shook her head and said, Who has it easy raising a child? I know it's hard for him to be both a father and a mother, but this sin was caused by him, so he has to bear it. But Bebe, Mom knows that you're kind, but marriage isn't a child's play. Sympathy can't be treated as love. Poplar Fruit was worried about the condition of Fong Bebe's throat. He pulled Fong Bebe's hand and said, "Let me say it." He turned to look at Mother Fang and said, "Auntie, you don't know, but Bebe understands things better than I do. When I confessed to her, she made me think about a question. Is it because I love her, or is it because I just want to find a mother for my daughter? Isn't that the case?" Mother Fang couldn't help but mock. Yang Gu didn't pay attention to her sarcasm. Instead, she reminisced, "In the beginning, I was very confused. I didn't understand why Bebe would ask such a question, so she told me to go back and think clearly before coming back to tell her." At that time, Bebe had just finished her first year of university. Poplar Fruit said, "During the holidays, I brought my daughter and teacher to Chongqing to attend a translation conference. When we came back, we were teaching in a Hong village in Guishan province. We lived there for a month, and the phone signal was unstable on the mountain. It was almost like we were isolated from the world. In that environment, I thought it through. Actually, I liked Bebe, not because she was good to my daughter, but because I liked her as a person. I liked her kindness, her serious attitude, and her dazed expression when she was doing her homework." Poplar Fruit continued with a hint of sweetness in his seriousness. "Every day on the mountain, I couldn't wait to go back to Yangcheng and end this period of yearning. Then, I could tell her my answer in person." "Uncle, Auntie." Poplar Fruit stood up and bowed sincerely. "I know that you are doing this for Bebe's good. You want her to have a good home. I also know that the fact that I have a daughter will bring a lot of trouble to Bebe and your family. But I hope that you can forgive me, and please believe me." Poplar Fruit said, "My feelings for Bebe are sincere. I love her, and I am willing to take care of her and protect her. She is just like my daughter. She is the most important thing in my heart. But how can a person's heart be divided in half?" Mother Fang was silent for a long time. She couldn't find a reason to refute. In the end, she said in a weak voice. She felt that it was ridiculous to say this. "It can't be divided in half." Poplar Fruit couldn't help but explain, "Bebe and my daughter are two different concepts. Love and fatherly love are different." Now, it seemed that both sides were in a tug-of-war again. Father Fang and Mother Fang both felt Poplar Fruit's sincerity, but they couldn't cross the hurdle caused by their traditional views. Poplar Fruit tried his best to explain, but if this most basic problem couldn't be solved, then they still couldn't come to an agreement. "If we continue to argue, there won't be a conclusion. How about this?" Father Fang waved his hand and sighed. "Poplar Fruit, you go back first. It's getting late. There won't be a bus back to school if you're late. Let's find some time to have a good chat later." "What's there to chat about? What's there to chat about?" Mother Fang muttered. Poplar Fruit scratched his head. He wanted to say something, but he didn't. "If you really care about Bebe." Father Fang rubbed his temples and said tiredly, "Just let her have a good rest. She's been crying since yesterday, and her face has turned pale. Also, you have to persuade her. She shouldn't be angry with her family about this. Father and Mother are doing this for your own good. You don't know how much you're hurting her by arguing with your mother." "Yes, I understand." Poplar Fruit nodded. "What do you understand?" Fong Bebe pinched the stupid guy with no EQ. She said to Father Fang and Mother Fang in a hoarse voice, "If he goes back, I'll go with him." "Don't you dare!" Mother Fang shouted furiously as she stood up. However, Fong Bebe held onto Poplar Fruit's hand tightly and looked at Mother Fang unyieldingly. Baby, don't argue with your mother." Poplar Fruit persuaded, "Your father is right. You should rest well at home. I'll go back first. I'll come back to see you tomorrow." "You're coming back tomorrow? Don't ever show up at our doorstep." Mother Fang shouted angrily. Her words triggered Fong Bebe's stubborn temper. She said in a hoarse voice, "I'll go with him. If you don't let him come, I won't come back." Father Fang hurriedly pulled his wife back and said, "That's enough. Calm down. How can your temper be so bad? Poplar Fruit, go back first." We can talk again tomorrow. Poplar Fruit nodded. He even helped Father Fang persuade Fong Beibei, baby, be good. Don't cry. Don't cry, okay? Take a shower and go to sleep. I'll come back tomorrow. I promise that when you wake up tomorrow morning, I'll be there. I promise. Chapter 880. In the end, Poplar Fruit had to take a cab home. Before he went home, Fong Beibei pestered him and insisted that he wait until she finished showering and went to bed before he could leave. Mr. and Mrs. Fang looked awkward, but in the end, they couldn't persuade Fong Beibei. After he got home, Poplar Fruit was exhausted. He called Liu Suqin and asked about his daughter's situation. When he heard that she was already asleep, he felt relieved and went to bed. Fortunately, even though he was exhausted, Poplar Fruit slept for nearly 5 hours. He circulated his internal energy and quickly adjusted his body. At this time, it was still late at night. Poplar Fruit practiced a set of martial arts and took a shower. He sat in the empty room and waited for the sun to rise. When the sun rose, Poplar Fruit could ask Song Jiwen for a car and go to the Fang's house to continue the negotiations. He picked up his phone that had been charged. 2 days ago, not only his parents and sister, but also many friends who cared about him had called to ask about his well-being. However, because his phone was out of battery and he had come home late last night, Poplar Fruit couldn't reply to them one by one. Poplar Fruit sent a group message to tell them that he was fine and that he would talk to them in detail later. Poplar Fruit opened Weibo and sighed. He saw that the internet was still full of rumors and discussions about him. Even his Weibo comments and private messages were filled with irrational netizens' abuse. Of course, there were still many netizens who argued for him, but Poplar Fruit was annoyed by it. Poplar Fruit manually turned off the function to reply to the comments, temporarily blocking the netizens' criticism. Yang Guo briefly looked at the summary of the rumors about her. She also saw the news of her friends standing up for her yesterday. She was angry, but also touched. In fact, it had been more than 2 days since the paparazzi news and the Water Army's outbreak. Now, the state of public opinion on the internet was leaning towards 2 sides. The irrational netizens and the Water Army continued to slander Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit's diehard fans, celebrities, and even Poplar Fruit's teachers were all on Poplar Fruit's side. Poplar Fruit hadn't shown up for a long time and didn't say anything. This made some neutral fans unsure. Even if they wanted to believe in Poplar Fruit, they were repeatedly confused by the Water Army's rumors. Poplar Fruit thought about it and posted on Weibo, saying, "The innocent knows that they are innocent, and the muddy knows that they are muddy. Everyone knows what kind of person Poplar Fruit is. I don't care about those who slander me, but those who slander my girlfriend and daughter, please touch your conscience. Have you been eaten by dogs?" Poplar Fruit was a little angry when he posted this, but he was really angry, especially when he saw the rumors about Kiki. Poplar Fruit couldn't wait to ask Fat Dragon to find the person and cut him into pieces. After calming down, Poplar Fruit posted on Weibo again to clarify things and to thank his friends, teachers, and netizens for supporting him. "Thank you, Teacher Mo, Teacher He, and all my friends and family who helped me clarify things. Also, thank you to the netizens who supported me. Rumors stop with the wise. Let's not lower ourselves to the Water Army's level." It suddenly came to light that Poplar Fruit has been at his girlfriend's house for the past few days to ask for forgiveness. Beibei is a good girl. Poplar Fruit will work hard to get uncle and auntie's understanding and recognition. After posting on Weibo, Poplar Fruit put his phone away. He was too lazy to look at the news on the internet. He didn't even have the mood to do the translation work that he insisted on doing every day. He was deep in thought, thinking about how to convince Father Fang and Mother Fang and how to get their recognition. However, Poplar Fruit didn't know that his 2 Weibo posts had set off a new wave of discussion on the internet. The first to react were the few online media that were paying close attention to Poplar Fruit's Weibo. The first to update was Teng Zun News, which had always maintained a good relationship with Poplar Fruit. They quickly screenshot Poplar Fruit's 2 Weibo posts and tried their best to help Poplar Fruit clarify things. In the end, they even teased, It seems like Poplar Fruit's parents-in-law found out about the paparazzi's photos in advance. We wish him the best of luck in getting the beauty back in the end. Nanu Evening News also posted on their official Weibo, praising Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei for being a perfect match. One was a good man, and the other was a good girl. They wished them a happy ending. Of course, not all media outlets were as clear-cut as the two of them. Many online media outlets even used Poplar Fruit scolded the internet water army and claimed that rumors stopped at the Y's as a gimmick to earn clicks. Qin Shueishui woke up very early. As soon as she turned on her computer, she saw the two Weibo posts that Poplar Fruit had posted. Among them, the phrase "don't lower yourself to the same level as the internet water army" was very eye-catching. Don't lower yourself to the same level as XX. The original meaning of this sentence was not to argue with people with low knowledge and poor self-cultivation. Saying such words meant that Poplar Fruit despised them and placed himself in a higher position than them. Qin Shueishui smiled indifferently. He gently tapped the table with his index finger, not minding it at all. I'm not afraid of you scolding people. I'm just afraid of you being indifferent. Qin Shueishui adjusted his glasses, and a sharp light was reflected from the lenses. In this way, we can use our backup move. After sending a few orders, the dozen or so Internet Water Army administrators under his control began to take action. When the people who took a nap woke up and the people who went to work in the afternoon began to take out their phones out of boredom, they were surprised to find that the public opinion, which had begun to improve a little in the morning, began to change in a magnificent manner again. Who is the mastermind behind the scandals and hype? An insider revealed that the previous hype was actually Poplar Fruit's self-directed and self-performed. It's absolutely true. The team behind Poplar Fruit has surfaced. Many rumors, true or false, began to wreak havoc on the entire internet. All the news pointed to one theme: Poplar Fruit wanted to use hype to maintain his popularity and crazily earn money. These rumors named names and even used some blurry fake photos to confuse the public. If one really analyzed it carefully, they would be able to find many loopholes. However, for the ordinary netizens who swept past without thinking, these rumors were almost like the truth, especially when they pointed out that the team behind Poplar Fruit was closely related to Givenchy. Now, Givenchy and Poplar Fruit had an advertising endorsement relationship. Some of the big places hung the advertisements of Poplar Fruit in BA coupled with the fake data that they fabricated about Poplar Fruit's sky-high endorsement fee of tens of millions. Even the netizens who had confidence in Poplar Fruit began to doubt whether this rumor was true. At this time, Teacher He and the others did not dare to make a sound. Although they felt that Poplar Fruit was not bad when they first came into contact with Poplar Fruit, after all, they had not known each other for long. In the industry, there were many people who tried to use hype to gain attention and take advantage of the opportunity to make a fortune. They did not want to become the accomplices of others. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.